All right, good evening, everybody. Come to the November 9th meeting of the Berkeley School Board. In the open session to order at 7:01 p.m. We began closed session at 5:35 p.m. Tonight, President Brown will be joining us a little bit later, so I'm presiding over the meeting until she gets here. And Vice President Babbitt may be joining us later. She may have an unavoidable conflict tonight. So we have a smaller crowd up here than normal, but we will proceed anyway. Ms. Chires, can you give your speech?
Sure. Good evening. Buenas noches. El siguiente mensaje será repetido en español. After a few procedural items, the board will dedicate 30 minutes of public comment. At the end of the meeting, there will be a second and final opportunity to participate. So if you do not get to go during the first call, we encourage you to stay till the end. If you want to speak, please raise your hand now by clicking on the participants button at the bottom of your screen. Select the raise your hand option. To comment by phone, you will be prompted to raise your hand by pressing *9. Remember that if you wait to raise your hand until the public comment period begins, you may not get to speak depending on the number of people who sign up to speak. So once again, please raise your hand now so that you can be given priority. The board president will usually call our students first. So if you are a student who wishes to speak today, please write student at the beginning or at the end of your name. The board president will also determine to set tonight's speaking time at 1, 2, or 3 minutes per speaker, and on an individual basis has the discretion to allow extra time for those who need translation or have other speech needs. While you are speaking, please be mindful of the timer that will appear on your screen. If you are still speaking when your time is up, please finish your sentence, but try not to go beyond. Después de unos procedimientos de inicio, un periodo de 30 minutos será dedicado a comentarios del público. Al final de la junta habrá una segunda y última oportunidad para quienes desean participar y no lo pudieron hacer durante la primera llamada. Para comentar por videoconferencia, a favor de levantar la mano ya, haciendo clic en el botón participantes en la parte de abajo de la pantalla y seleccione el botón levantar la mano. Para participar por teléfono, levante la mano presionando *9. Favor de hacerlo ya que si se espera que el periodo inicie, tal vez tendrá que esperarse hasta el segundo periodo al final de la junta. La presidenta otorgará 1, 2 o 3 minutos por orador y tiempo adicional a quienes requieren traducción o cualquier otra adaptación especial. Aparecerá en una cuenta regresiva en su pantalla. Durante sus comentarios, si continúa hablando cuando se acaba su tiempo, favor de terminar su oración, pero trate de no sobrepasarse su tiempo. Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ms. Chires. Can you please call the roll?
Student Director Ian Siegel.
Here.
Director Anna Vasudev.
Presente.
Director Julie Sinai.
Here.
Director Ty Alper.
You can call me president for one last time.
Acting President Ty Alper.
I'm here.
Vice President Laura Babbitt will be joining us.
Vice President Babbitt is not here at the moment.
Okay. And President Khadijah Brown is
Also not here at the moment.
noted.
Okay. Let's see. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Oh, wait, we need to, Superintendent Ford Marthel, are we postponing item 7, which is the recognition of the Berkeley Fire Department?
Yes, thank you, Director/President Alper. We are postponing that, and I'm not looking at the agenda at the moment, but I also believe there might be an agenda item, the block grant update, that should be removed as well, as we're going to cover that at the November 30th meeting.
Oh, okay. All right. So
I will move it with those changes.
okay, removing item 7 and item 14.3, and Director Vasudev seconded. Okay, can you call the roll, Ms. Chair?
Director Siegel.
Yes.
Director Vasudev.
Yes.
Director Sinai.
Yes.
Acting President Alper.
Yes,
And that's it.
that's it. Okay. All right, we have our agenda. Let's do the report out from closed session real quick, and then we'll go to our equity showcase. So Director Sinai.
So acting Vice President Sinai.
That's right.
As acting President Alper said, meeting started at, was called to order at 5:35. And directors Sinai, Alper, and Vasudev were all there. President Brown and Vice President Babbitt were absent. Item 3.1, we heard an update. Item 3.2, we heard an update. And item 3.3, we heard an update, and Director Sinai moved the superintendent's recommendation. Director Alper seconded, and all present were in favor. That concludes the closed session.
Thank you, Acting Vice President. And now I will turn over to the superintendent to introduce our equity showcase tonight.
Our equity showcase is going to be presented by Pete Gutland, who is our head of VAPA. We are so excited to hear about the ways in which we realize our 4 E's with our arts, music, dance, and performing arts program. So Pete.
Hey, how is it? How is everybody? Thanks for having me again. Happy to present. And I'm going to start sharing my screen right now. It's actually pretty recent that that I was here sharing in an equity showcase. It was actually February of this same year, 2022. And so, let's see, am I sharing? Yes. Okay. So I kind of decided that, you know, the last time I was here, I presented on our whole equity plan in the music department. As you know, equity is a big issue and a big focus for our music department. And because I already presented on our large body of work that we've been working on over the 8 years that I've been supervising the department, I'm just going to leave these links up here. You can take a screenshot, and then later on you can look at those QR codes, and you can see our full equity plan with the report card on how we're doing, as well as you can even view my slide presentation with the other QR code. I think there's video on the district site of my last presentation. So if you want to see our full equity plan that we've been working on for 8 years, you can look at that. What I want to talk about tonight is just what we've been up to these last couple months of this school year. And it's a lot. And so the overview is Pangea Day Camp, retooling how 4th graders in our mandatory 4th, 5th grade instrumental music program, how they choose their instrument and get into classes. I'm going to showcase our diverse staff and why that's important. And then I'm going to talk about some possible creative metrics for looking at BIPOC engagement in the program. Again, it's actually BIPOC engagement and fighting BIPOC attrition in our program. When kids, we have a mandatory 3rd through 5th grade program, and when music becomes a choice in middle school, we see significant changes in BIPOC representation in our student musicians in middle school and high school. So I'm going to look at some creative metrics there. Okay, first of all, we have this larger issue that we're realizing that often kids later on in 4th and 5th grade start saying, hey, I'm less engaged in my instrument. I actually got put in a class that was my 2nd or 3rd choice, and so I'm not very engaged in it. We realized that this was happening to BIPOC students, and we did a couple of things to sort of to prevent that. One was when we realized that we could sort of give students as much background info as possible, and that was the point of Pangea. As it was a BIPOC focused event. It was 2 Saturdays at Oxford. And 120 kids were invited to participate and participated. And it basically what it consisted of is these sort of lightning rounds of kids doing 7 half-hour classes in one day, where they basically they went through in groups of less than 10 and got basically a condensed version of like what a teacher would give in their first 2 private lessons on an instrument. And they did all 7 instruments that we offer in BUSD. So basically, each kid got this like super intense amount of background information on each instrument and was able to make a better choice at what they really gravitate towards, a better match, if you will. They had pizza, they had a lot of fun. We played on the playground. And that was mostly organized by Jay Whittington, our equity specialist. we also realized that we'd have to back that up. And in the past, our priority was sort of balancing classes or distributing students among the instruments that we have available. And so, and in doing that, if a lot of kids sign up for trumpet and we only have so many trumpets or certain, amount of spots in the class to make it a viable class, we would give kids their second and third choice, just like what happens in electives later on in school and so forth. But this year I shifted the protocol and said, wherever possible, we're going to give all students their first choice, so that students are more engaged, and we don't lose those kids who I think could be really talented musicians if they found their true spot. So we kind of had to put our money where our mouth is. You can see in the picture on my right, for some reason, just by a fluke, a ton of kids signed up for cello this year, way more than we had instruments for. It was just kind of a flash in the pan, kind of weird thing that happened. And so we ended up having to purchase, 50 new cellos. And this is a picture of two of our cello teachers helping me and Diana Lee, our Vapatech, unload those and process them. So we really are putting kids in their first choice wherever possible, and it's making a big difference. And in the meantime, our equity specialist is calling home, checking in with BIPOC families and so forth as that process happens. I also want to highlight, while we're talking about equity, that the music staff that I supervise has changed from 5% when I came on in this position 8 years ago to 47% BIPOC teachers, full-time, fully credentialed teachers. So we're trying to mirror that, the demographics of our student body that we serve. And it's super important. You're going to see why in a minute. These are some of their pictures. And lastly, I just want to point out, we have some metrics as far as student enrollment in middle school classes, as opposed to our mandatory 4th and 5th grade program. But I wanted to point out, we took 5th graders to camp, to music camp over the weekend a few weeks ago. I wanted to point out that the last time we took kids to camp pre-pandemic, we had the count of BIPOC student participation in that camp was 25%. So much lower than a representative amount. And this year, the count was 44%. And I just want to highlight back to the teachers now that we have on staff. It's just an open question to me, and I think it's an important one to kind of wonder out loud. Does representation equal participation or engagement, or however you want to say that? We have 47% teachers of color and 44% of our 5th graders participating, BIPOC 5th graders participating in music camp. And I think that's it's a significant coincidence, if you will. So that is those are my slides. And that's my presentation, just kind of what we're up to the last couple of months. Again, look at those QR codes if you're into the whole big picture, or people can email me, talk to me, ask me questions. I don't know if this is a Q&A thing or if I just stop talking now.
It's not a Q&A thing, but we can thank you for this great presentation, Mr. Gidland, and for all the work that you and your colleagues and your team do. So we really appreciate you taking a few minutes to come share that with us.
For sure, anytime. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much. All right, next, I believe we're at public comment. Yes, okay, so now is the time to raise your hand if you want to speak. Okay, we're gonna limit speaking time to 2 minutes. Oh wait, do we have a timer, Liz? Ms. Charis? How are we doing that?
Yes, I'll be sharing my screen with a timer. 2 minutes,
okay. Yeah, 2 minutes. Those of you in the audience can't see the participant list. There's 47 people here, but not everybody's raised their hand to speak. The last speaker will be Chris Rowan. And if you want to speak and you haven't raised your hand yet, then there'll be another opportunity at the end of public comment period. And if you can keep your if you can keep your comments to 2 minutes, that will enable us to get to everybody who is currently on the list. So we're going to start with Gladys Ocampo Stout. Ms. Stout. Ms. Stout, it looks like, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yep, now we can. Go ahead.
Sorry. Okay. Good evening. My name is Gladys Ocampo Stout, and I'm here to speak on behalf of Latinos Unidos de Berkeley. We are happy to see that the work on the multilingual master plan is advancing. Based on the meeting that was held on Monday and the overview we had on the plan, we have some questions and concerns that we would like to see addressed. We would like to know when the written master plan will be completed and when it will be implemented. We would like to see the vision of the rollout for implementation year by year for the first 3 years. We would also like to see an increase of family engagement where the families can provide the plan. As far as we can see, only one session was held on Monday. We would like to know when the others will be scheduled. Project to Inspire, while great, is an educational program for families to learn about the US school systems, but not a direct equivalent. We need to go beyond checking the boxes of what are legally obligated to do as a district. To implement this plan, we need a robust staff to make sure all teachers are properly trained, assessed, and making sure they are implementing these practices in the classroom. There is a legal obligation that has long been overdue to create this plan. We hope that as the completion of the plan approaches, there is a well thought out implementation model that will go into effect this year with the funding we advocated for as part of the block grant. In your own data presented on the last school board meeting, you showed the Spanish speaking EL showed significant drops with less than 15% proficiency district-wide and EL and ELA, and the SBA math performance for the English learner scores have decreased in the last 3 test administrations. Please show us that you take the needs of the ELL students seriously by funding robust targeted interventions this year and not making us wait another academic year to serve our most vulnerable students. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ms. Stout. Ms. Chavez, do we have to share the screen for the timer? Is that the only way that people will be able to see it?
This is the only way people can see it.
Okay.
Unless you want to hold up a sign like old times.
No, it's okay. It's just that then the public can't see us during public comment.
Let me see if I can change the view.
In the meantime, Noel Vidal is next, followed by Noor Saglam. It's okay if you can't figure it out, but Noel, are you there? Noel Vidal.
Hi, yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right, there's a lot of finagling to do.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. You're good.
Okay, all right. I have a 5th grader at Cragmont, and I am addressing the 3-zone model with a few comments and questions. So at the June 15, 2022 meeting, the board approved the 3-zone model for middle schools with direction to bring a work plan addressing key decision points relating to implementation in the fall of 2022. And I believe that's this meeting. I've reviewed the deck for this meeting, and so I'm reacting somewhat to it. 2 items the board named at the June meeting were the transportation plan and then maps. I don't see much detail in the slide deck on those, but the biggest, I think, issue that has been realized recently by the community is the concurrent, very significant $22 million campus rebuild project at Longfellow. It appears to end in 2025. So my 6th grader would be on a campus under construction for most of her career there. And I guess I wonder why the board would plan such a significant shift. And I believe I understand increased census, student number at the school. Additionally, and so I asked that question, but I would suggest that pausing on the 3-zone implementation until construction is complete would be a great idea. And the other main point is that the transportation plan doesn't look very well fleshed out yet. I see that there's one bus, but does the board know exactly what kind of dent that will make it in the transportation needs? And I know that there are other people on the line who also want to speak, and I can't see the timer, so I think I'm going to, I got 36 minutes or 36 seconds.
You
I
got
also,
30. Yeah,
sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, you got 30 more seconds. Go ahead.
Thanks. I also am wondering how committed AC Transit is to I guess funding, or you will be paying for it. These are questions I also have. And then the last main one is Longfellow going to be ready to deal with an influx of new students that have just come out of a pandemic? They're getting used to the routine again. Many of them have been impacted by the pandemic academically and
All right.
emotionally. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming and for your comment. Next, we have Noor Saglam, followed by R. Ramos. Noor.
Okay, I think.
Yep.
I can. Okay, sorry.
Sure.
I'm opposing that the TWI program is not being a choice for Sylvia Mendez kids anymore. It seems like coming next year. My daughter speak a third language at home, and Sylvia Mendez was great for till the 5th grade. They do their best to teach them Spanish, and she really loves it. But I think her level of Spanish is not good enough to continue at the 6th grade level. And the same was true for my first daughter, who went to King, and she still takes supplements Spanish classes, and she continues learning the language, but not like at an academic level at the school. Because like the other day, when I asked my daughter, 5th grader at Sylvia Mendez, how do you say a door in Spanish, and she couldn't answer me. So I don't think she will be able to have good comprehension going into the TWI program at the Longfellow if she just continues. Like, they're going to be teaching science and math and Spanish, and she's not going to have a greater understanding, and she's not going to be flourishing there. She's a very smart girl, and I want her to be able to continue in the English track. And we live very, very far from Longfellow. We are almost, I think, when I checked, 2.5 miles. She currently takes the bus, and every morning it takes 1 hour for her to get to Sylvia Mendez. She did love it till this year, but this year she wants every day to be picked up. Doesn't want to ride on the bus for an hour in the morning, wake up at 6:30 and take the bus at 7:20 and get there at 8 o'clock. Same thing coming back home for an hour. So she could spend all that 2 hours hanging around the school with her friends and walking and biking to King. So I don't want this to be a forceful choice for her.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Next, we have R. Ramos. R. Ramos?
Yes. Hello?
Yeah,
Yes,
sure.
my name is Ricardo Ramos. I'm Esteban Ramos' dad. My kid goes to Sylvia Mendez on 5th grade. And when we joined TWA, and this is very difficult for me, difficult to open up and be vulnerable in a meeting like this, but I have to explain my personal situation. Obviously, I was healthy 6 years ago. Now I have what is called end-stage chronic kidney disease. I endure every day a 12-hour treatment at home. So I'm unable to go ahead and drive or go and take care of my kid if something happens. My older kid attended King Middle School. We have a network, a support network close by, friends that live there, and in case that something happens, can take care of more kids. Driving back and forth is impossible for us. Taking the bus is going to be a long ordeal. And not only that, I also at a personal level, I take care of I'm an only child, take care of my 89-year dementia mother. She has dementia. And it's very difficult for us, the situation. It obviously has changed when we made a commitment with TWI 6 years ago. These were not the circumstances. We are very happy with it. But our other son also went to an immersion school, eventually went to to King, and it was successful. So I'm requesting to go ahead and have that. Like in the plan, it said that there are 3 zones, and I do not know why we are being forced as a member of Sylvia Mendes to have our kids stay in Sylvia Mendes, even if the circumstances have changed. That's my request.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I wanted to note for everybody that our president is President Brown is here. I'm gonna finish presiding over public comment and then turn the meeting back over to our esteemed president. Next, we have Maria Alvarez, followed by Daryl Starr. Alvarez?
Do you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
You're good.
Okay, great. Hello, everyone. My name is Maria Alvarez. My youngest son is in 5th grade at Sylvia Mendes, and I'm here to speak regarding the new enrollment policy for our middle schools. And actually, Ricardo Ramos' wife, you just heard from my husband. I'm here to request the board to allow some families in our school to opt out from the immersion program based on the special circumstances that we're living in. You have received letters explaining perspectives of this new enrollment policy for middle school that are important to consider as you discuss the implementation. One of them, the fact that we made a 6-year commitment back in 2017 when we signed up for the program. We have had a great experience, but we didn't sign up for a 9-year commitment, and that's what's happening. So basically, the rules of the game are being changed halfway through. In a personal level, as my husband said, we have been facing tons of health related challenges in the last 18 months. I have sent you all a letter. I also sent a letter to the superintendent, and I have spoken with Mr. Martinez, the district admissions manager, sharing some details of our family's case. I don't believe it's fair that Sylvia Mendes families are being forced to continue with the immersion program as part of this new enrollment policy. We value and appreciate the immersion program, and we are happy that the families who wish to continue the program will be able to do so. But our life has changed significantly since the spring of 2021, when my husband needed to start dialysis every day. Our daily logistics have to be simplified and more manageable in order to keep going and living a life with emotional, mental, and physical balance that will allow our 2 boys to thrive in school. I really appreciate your time, your consideration, and I hope that we were able to get granted, our choice to go to the school in our sons. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Daryl Starr, followed by Claire Chalmers. Mr. Starr?
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
Okay, great. I'm glad I'm audible. All right. The reason why I'm here is because, first of all, I'm a former teacher. I hate saying that, from Berkeley Technology Academy. Having taught there for greater than 3 years, and also taught at RIM for greater than 4 years. I'm really I'm pretty crestfallen about the whole situation. Whereas I've been treated like pretty much crap in terms of how I was let go just last semester, very unexpectedly, after being told, I was going to stay, and that's not the meat of what I'm here about tonight. It's that I haven't been paid according to the contract, and it's just gotten worse and worse. I've been promised dates, and I've requested help from everybody I could reach out to, including, I believe, the acting director, Albert. I requested help from you and anybody at the school board in order to like really get this thing visible as to how, where you put someone, African-American male, computer science and video game professional in the shoes, in the position to lead underserved students in the community. And then you actually, you do everything that you do everything against the contract, basically. Sorry, I'm just mixed over my.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay, Mr. Starr.
If you could just give me 4 seconds though. I really need someone to get in touch with me because I sent emails to the board. I don't know if it reached everybody. And I also sent emails definitely to the superintendent. And I'll tell the superintendent directly right now. The department has failed me immensely. I still haven't been paid. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Starr, thank you. And I have your email, and I'll make sure the superintendent has it as well, and make sure that someone gets back to you. So thank you for being here. Next, we have Claire Chalmers.
Hi, this is actually Erin Chalmers. I'm Claire's father. I guess her name was on the computer when I signed up.
Okay, hi. Go ahead.
I'm also here to talk about item 14.2, the Sylvia Mendez and the tracking to go to Longfellow Middle School. First of all, thank you for the board's work on redistricting the middle schools. I thought the process went pretty well. Of course, it was contentious, but I thought it went well, and I appreciate that. I support the 2A immersion program and think that most of the TWI families will want to send their kids to Longfellow to continue with the program. But as you've heard tonight, for a variety of reasons, not all families do want to continue with the TWI. And I think those families should have their kids attend the middle school in their own zone, rather than being forced to go to a different school out of their zone and potentially travel farther to go to Longfellow. Both of my kids have done the TWI program. I have one in 5th grade there now, one at King Middle School. And for personal, educational, and logistical reasons, we had decided that our daughter would go to King Middle School. And we've been very happy with it. When we signed up for the TWI, we knew it was a commitment until 5th grade, but as you've heard from others, we definitely didn't know it might be a commitment through 8th grade. So it was a bit surprising for us to see the draft plan, the draft policy, which seems to say that all Sylvia Mendez kids will have to go to Longfellow regardless of whether they want to continue with TWI, regardless of whether they're in that zone. So again, I think most Sylvia Mendez kids will want to go to Longfellow, but if families want to bow out of the TWI program for any reason, I just ask that your policy clarifies that they can do that. And I'd emailed suggested language that would carry that out to you earlier today. And just finally, I also saw that the draft policy would have a 1-year sibling legacy preference, and I do support that and appreciate that. As I say, my daughter's at King now, so that would help us. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for being here. Next, we have Leon Salvatierra, followed by Anthony Vidal. Leon?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm here also to talk about the TWI program for Sylvia Mendez students. My son is in 5th grade, and he's going to be affected by this new policy, which apparently makes Sylvia Mendez the only feeder school for Longfellow. There are many reasons why I don't want my child to go to Sylvia Mendez, but and I don't really feel comfortable publicly speaking about them. But I will tell you, like, one of the main reasons is distance, and just distance alone would really put a lot of stress in my family. And just like many parents I know are in similar situation. And, I just want to reiterate what's been said before. When I enrolled my child in Sylvia Mendez, going to Longfellow was optional. And now it seems to be we're going to be forced to send our child to Longfellow. Also, in the messaging that we got from the district and the school principal at that time last year, it wasn't clearly stated that Sylvia Mendez was going to be the only feeder school for Longfellow, and to say the least. So I think that we should have an option to send our kids to the zone that is assigned to in accordance to where we live. And if the district wants to make sure that Longfellow is stronger, it's a stronger school, that they shouldn't force enrollment, but they should allocate more resources to that school. And that's my comment about it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Next we have Anthony Vidal, followed by Alicia Chung.
Yeah.
Mr. Vidal?
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, thanks. I want to talk about the three-zone middle school proposal as well. Just kind of broadly thinking about it, I think it's actually not a bad plan in terms of the goals of diversity and equality that are being sought. I think it comes down to the timing, and it's been talked about before. The issues of communication to families and people involved in this. I think, understanding it as from a practical matter and thinking about it as a parent, you think, okay, I can see what the goals of this project are, and you can get on board with it. But as you start learning things about the transportation issues I already touched on, coming out of a pandemic and doing this right now while people are still kind of getting their footing back from the pandemic, and we have a child who struggled, and as she's going into junior high school, it's going to be critical time for her to get her footing to be ready for high school. Those 3 years are pretty key. And when I found out about the construction project at Longfellow, I think when you add those things up, I think it's just, this could be one of those things where you look back in 3 years, and if it was done right, everybody knew about it and everybody was on board with it in a practical way, it could be very successful. But if it tries to get pushed right now and people find out like it was half-baked and the timing was poor, and then their kids showed up on campus to try to get settled and it just wasn't ready for them, I think it could be a big failure. So I feel like you all could really make the impact that's being sought by proposing this new three-zone model. I just think the timing's really bad and it could be end up kind of blowing up in your face. So I feel like there's two ways to go. One is postpone it until the school's ready to receive it. Two is force it. And I just think that would be a really bad idea. So thanks for your time.
Thank you. Next we have Alicia Chung.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Go ahead.
Great, thanks. So thanks for the opportunity to speak. I am Alicia Chung, and I am a supporter and a member, proud member of this Berkeley community for over 15 years. I am mother of an 8th grader at King, and also mother of a 5th grader at Craigmont. And really here to, again, resound the concerns of the many families that, you have heard tonight with regards to the preparedness of our school district for this 3-zone model, and for Longfellow to receive the additional students. And the questions really are around preparedness, as now it is become apparent that there will be a construction project concurrently, and that the transportation plan may not be in place. But further beyond that, do we really have programs to support the transition? And are all the programs equitably allocated at Longfellow for new students? And all of these things are real concerns for the parents and the members of this community. And we don't feel that there has been much transparency in terms of understanding what next year will look like. And so for all of these reasons, we ask the board to consider postponing the 3-zone plan until some of these things are either put in place, flushed out, or fully communicated to the concerned families and parents of kids. And all of this really to minimize potential disruption to the children's education. I know that aptitude test scores are of something that we look at, and this will potentially be something that affects both kids that are struggling.
I gotta cut you off there, Ms. Chung. Thank you so much. Next, we're gonna have Jessica Stiles, followed by Eileen, and then our final speaker of this public comment period will be Chris Rowan. Sorry, I lost track of who we were on. Oh, Jessica Stiles. Ms. Stiles?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. My name is Jessica Stiles, and I'm a parent of 2 children in Berkeley Public Schools. I am concerned about the steep rise in the number of students and staff becoming very ill in recent weeks from respiratory infections, particularly at Berkeley High. The increasing transmission of flu, RSV, and COVID threatens to lead to even higher rates of absenteeism and disruptions if BUSD does not step in and implement mitigations that we know work, including a temporary mask mandate. Failure to do so could lead to the sudden school closings happening in other districts nationwide, where there are not enough healthy teachers and subs to teach the half-empty classrooms. Unmitigated spread is also impacting the district's ability and obligation to meet an essential need for our kids, to keep them fed. In a recent email, Bonnie Christensen, Director of Nutrition Services, informed the community that the department is having to take extreme measures to provide food because the department is short of about 15 employees per day, and that 2 days last week there were no cooks at all. She warned that we, quote, expect that we will see extreme absenteeism throughout this season due to surges in COVID, flu, and RSV. Our low-income students depend on this essential service, and so will be the ones to suffer most if food services are further compromised. The district also has an obligation to prevent our local hospitals from facing the crisis unfolding in an already strained hospitals nationwide, where children struggling to breathe due to RSV are flooding emergency rooms. Households with babies and toddlers are especially vulnerable to these life-threatening infections and deserve protection, which the district can help provide through a temporary mask mandate, which prevents transmission of not only COVID, but RSV and flu as well. In a study published by the American Academy of Pediatrics, universal masking was associated with a 72% reduction in secondary transmission compared with optional masking. Last year, we were told that mask mandates would come back when necessary to get us through surges. My question is, does BUSD have a threshold for what constitutes a surge?
Thank you, Ms. Stiles. Appreciate it. Thank you for being here. Next, we have Eileen, and then our last speaker will be Chris Rowan.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Eileen Ambernilia. I'm part of the group of fifth grade parents at Sylvia Mendez who'd like to advocate for the choice of opting out of TWI and returning our students to their geographically assigned middle schools. First, I just want to express my wholehearted support for TWI and for Longfellow. I've worked really hard in the PTA. I think the program is working really hard and is a wonderful benefit to our community. However, I don't believe that continuing on in TWI is the right decision for several of these students, including my own. And let me just share why. When I decided to enroll my son in TWI, he was 4.5 years old. He wasn't very verbal, but I was hopeful. He has since evolved and he just does not thrive as a language learner, unfortunately. And I have to come to that conclusion with some sadness. But during my time at Sylvia Mendez, I always thought it was an option to leave and to return him to his geographic school. I stayed because I wanted to support the school. I wanted to give it a chance. And I wanted to see it through. I felt like that was my commitment. But continuing him on in TWI in middle school, I think will be a detriment to his learning and his confidence. I'd like him to return to the school that's closest to us and to the school that he's going to be in with more of his childhood friends. I think that will allow him to regain his confidence and catch up in a really crucial time in his life. So that is my request, to really consider for some students, the choice of TWI and Longfellow is not the right choice, even though we've enjoyed the opportunity to be at Sylvia Mendez.
Thank you. And our last speaker will be Chris Rowan. Chris?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I had a request for, with the new 3-zone assignment system, for the district to provide a higher quality maps or a searchable address database for the zones. With the low quality maps that the district provides for, I can't actually tell, because I'm very near the border, what zone my child is going to be in. And I have several neighbors and some of his classmates that are in the same situation. So I feel that this day and age, it shouldn't be a terrible challenge to get a map that's accurate to the household level. And then my second part of my comment is, with some of the disparities of resources between different schools in the district, which I understand are higher at the middle school level than the elementary school level, I'd like the district to consider pooling and dividing PTA funds and resources so that no school has higher or lower levels of resources based on the ability of the families in that school to support their PTA. I understand a number of other districts in California have done this to a good effect, and I think that would help balance the equities as the district moves to the 3-zone middle school system. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That concludes the public comment period for this part of the meeting. There'll be another opportunity for public comment at the end of the meeting if you didn't get a chance to speak. Oh, wait, should I be turning this out? President Brown, are you here? Are you actually
Yes,
here?
I am actually here.
Would you
Hello,
like
everyone? Oh,
go ahead.
go
No, am I turning it over to you?
well, you can if you want to, but you're doing such a fabulous job. You want to go ahead and continue with the comments?
I didn't know if you wanted me to do that.
Superintendent.
It's you're the president, so you tell me.
Okay. Well, you can keep going.
Okay.
For the comments section.
Okay, I'll keep going. You just let me know You just let me know, and I'll decide whether to relinquish control back to you.
Okay.
Ms. Chairman, do we have any union comments?
We do. We have
Okay.
comments from BFT. Just a second while I share my screen.
Yeah.
I am Matt Meyer, President of the Federation of Teachers. I wanted to first thank the board.
Can you turn it up a little bit?
Negotiations with all four unions. It is a lot of work and a lot of time to negotiate 4 contracts simultaneously. Multi-year contracts in place. We all have more capacity.
Are you able to hear that?
Yeah, but it's an echo. Is it an echo for everybody else? Okay.
It is, Liz. I think because you're using 2 devices, you need to make sure you mute one. And turn the volume up on.
When you mute the Berkeley webinar, it mutes the sound.
Right, just to mute the other one, just 2 devices that she's using.
Just a second, let me get my other device on.
Let's just keep peppering her with suggestions. If President Brown was presiding, I'm sure the sound quality would be perfect. I'll accept responsibility.
Yes, that's what it is. I'm not even going to say anything back to that.
President of the Berkeley Federation of Teachers. I wanted to first thank the board for prioritizing contract negotiations with all 4 unions. It is a lot of work and a lot of time to negotiate 4 contracts simultaneously. With multi-year contracts in place, we all have more capacity to dig deeper into all of our important district endeavors. I know my members are excited to be participating in the CSA's focal groups, the eco-literacy curriculum initiatives, taking dives into data to inform our practice, working on the EL Master Plan, and participating in various aspects of the African American Success Project. I am happy to see the middle school assignment conversation moving forward. Thanks to this board's vote last spring, the work of implementation was able to begin and is on track. Although there may be different decision points along the way, there will not be a delay to creating a more equitable student assignment system at the middle school level. Although we still do not know who will be our school board directors in December, I know that the 3 winners will all be champions of public education and will be focused on governing our district with students' best interests. I am proud of everyone who volunteered for this election. Regardless of candidate preference, it shows a deep commitment to our schools and our community. The partnerships we develop, caregivers, teachers, support staff, administrators, neighbors, activists, and elected officials are what allows us to do the necessary work to improve our educational outcomes and make sure our schools are fully funded, both locally and statewide. Thank you.
All right, thank you, President Meyer. Is that the only video, Ms. Chavez?
That's it.
Okay. And I don't see any other union members with their hands up. So what about committees? Is there anybody here from a district committee? Raise your hand if so. I don't see anybody. Okay. Well, let's do board member comments and then well, we'll do board member and superintendent comments. So wants to go first? President Brown, do you want to go?
Director Alper, I think it would be best if we give our student director, Ian Siegel, preference to go first, followed by Director Basudev.
Oh, all right. Well, who's running this meeting? All right. I'm just President Brown's puppet. Okay, I have an idea. We'll go with Student Director Siegel first, and then I think we'll go with Director Basudev.
Thank you, President Brown, for the recommendation of going first. I'd like to start today with just thanking public comment and thanking everyone that came. It was really great to hear all the voices and really essential to our discussions later today. I'd also like to thank Mr. Gidlin, who came. I have really seen the benefit of the arts in my own life. I'm a really avid dancer outside of school, and I've seen the value of diverse members within the arts. And so I'm really glad that the district is taking initiatives to expand access to the arts across all different types of students. I'd also really like to acknowledge all the students that went out and voted. Students really were passionate about this. They were posting on social media, them depositing their ballots in the boxes. They were approaching me with questions about the election, about learning more about the school board candidates. And I was really overjoyed to see how engaged this next generation of voters is with the process and how ready they are to tackle these new problems. And then finally, I just like to thank everyone that contributed to the Berkeley High Spirit Week last week. It was a complete success. And this was solely just a result of cross collaboration between students, teachers, and the administration. We have a Spirit Week commission that works to make sure that every group on campus feels supported and heard throughout the development process. And what was a really good point to hear from Principal Rigoza is that teachers felt safe this year on Rally Day. Students had fun and all objectives were achieved. And so I just think this marks a new beginning with Berkeley High and how students and staff and administration can work together to still have great fun events while keeping in mind everyone's safety and well-being. So thank you. I look forward to the discussion tonight.
Thank you very much, student directors. Director Vasudev.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Also, just wanted to thank everyone for coming out tonight and for sharing your comments about the middle school assignment model. And I really also appreciated the comments on public health. I know that the state is doing a lot of work to distribute home tests in time for the holidays. And so I know that school districts are putting mitigation plans in place, and I know that our district staff is also working hard on that. I wanted to wish everyone a happy Indigenous Peoples Heritage Month. And also just thank our staff for the wonderful Dia de los Muertos event at Berkeley High on October 29th. I was able to attend it and just really appreciated all the community partners that came together, especially Bahia, Lifelong, City of Berkeley. It was really great to see our student groups there too, selling some of their artwork. And it was just a really beautiful community event. And I also really appreciated our city partners that came out and added a public health focus too and helped people get their flu shots. So thank you for all the folks that made that event happen. And yeah, I look forward to our discussion and just learning more how we can address some of the concerns that some of the parents have expressed around the new assignment model. Thank you.
Okay. President Brown, do you want to go or do you want me to wait to have you go last?
I'll go last if that's okay with you.
Okay. Are you ready, Director Sane? Or
Sure.
Okay.
I just have a couple of short comments. I, again, want to thank folks for coming out and sharing your concerns and opinions with us. I really want to give a wonderful shout out to Mr. Gidlin for all of the work that the BAPA program has done on equity. And it's exciting to see the data. And so we're not just hearing about things they're trying, but he's actually providing evidence that things are working in the sense of the diversification of our teaching staff and the participation in the camp. It's just very exciting to hear. So thank you, Mr. Gidlin. I just want to do a quick report out on our facilities committee and thank Executive Director Calise and Shanita and the whole team, which you're going to hear a little bit tonight about in relation to the workforce housing. But we had a good final facilities meeting for Director Alper and myself, and went over all of the projects that we have been doing over the last few years under the bond measure, the previous bond under Measure I and Measure G, and saw some of the progress and the work that was being done at Berkeley High. And fortunately, I had the wonderful opportunity through being the board rep on the CTE advisory committee to be able to do a walkthrough at the Berkeley High A building, and to see all of the amazing work that we've done on creating open kind of state-of-the-art classrooms for our music and arts and digital media program and our CTE programs under Stagecraft. And it's just really exciting to see Wynn Skeels, our head of our CTE program, and the teachers working hand in hand with our facilities team and our contractors. And there's a big banner up on the theater about the Carpenters Union, that you can really see kind of our curriculum and students and facilities all kind of coming together on a project for our kids. So it was really exciting, and continue to want to thank the facilities department for all the work that they do. I also just want to say I'm looking forward to the conversation around the middle school assignment, and I'll hold the rest of my comments for that. So thank you. Oh, wait, I did have one more thing I remembered. Vote 16, and Student Director Siegel, you kind of reminded me that it's really important to our community that our young people are engaged in our civic education and our voting. And unfortunately, with the registrar of voters and the work right now on getting the Vote 16, which is allowing 16 and 17-year-olds to vote for school board, has yet to come to fruition. I think it was passed in 2016. And there's a number of lawsuits going on right now around who is eligible to vote in California. In San Francisco, it's a question of undocumented folks. In Oakland and Berkeley, we've been looking at the issues of U16. So I just want to flag it. It's an ongoing work that we are still committed to doing. There's a Vote 16 committee that's actively looking at it. And hopefully, as I transition off the board and our new board members come on, there will be someone who continues to champion and kind of dog the development of the Vote 16 in Alameda County. Fortunately, we have Oakland as a partner, but it's an uphill battle. It's not something that, we think, oh, we'll pass it. We pass the ballot measure and boom, it happens. There's all sorts of complexities that have gone around with this, not to even mention nobody has really even figured out the cost yet because they've just been dealing with the technical and now the eligibility issues. So just want to continue to say that, Berkeley Unified, we continue to stand by the Vote 16, and hopefully we'll have some board champions that continue to watch it.
Thanks, Director Sinai. I'll go next, and then I'll turn it over to President Brown, and then she'll take over from there. I have some thoughts, of course, about the middle school item that we'll be discussing. I'm looking forward to talking about that, and I appreciate people who came out. I wanted to just, I guess, make one thing clear, because I don't think we're going to be talking about this in that discussion, which is the suggestion that we delay the entire integration plan of our middle schools. That's not going to happen. It's not on the table. It's not something that is being discussed or addressed tonight. And the plan to integrate our middle schools by changing the way we assign students was unanimously approved by this board back in June, with explicit direction that it be implemented in time for next fall of 2023. So that's what's going to happen. And the implementing regulations, sort of ironing out some of the last important details, and they are important, is what we've discussed over several public policy subcommittee meetings that myself and Vice President Babbitt are the board representatives on, that we will discuss tonight, that we may discuss at tomorrow's policy subcommittee meeting, and that we'll have a sort of final opportunity to discuss at the last board meeting in November, at which point all of the implementation details need to be finalized for our admissions director, Francisco Martinez, to implement policy. So we're really excited about, there was a mention of the construction that's going to be going on at Longfellow. This is something that Director Sinai and myself know pretty intimately because we were on the facility subcommittee that she just mentioned, but the board has also had several presentations about. We're really excited about a $30 million investment into the capital infrastructure of Longfellow School, which has everything going for it: outstanding teachers, incredible students, great administrators, and a facility that needs an upgrade. And we've chosen as a district to heavily invest our bond money into that school. And the whole point of the plan to integrate our middle schools is that each of the 3 middle schools will have a representative cross-section of our diverse community. And so the burdens of living through construction as a student will be felt by a representative cross-section of middle school students, and the benefits of that construction will be experienced by a representative cross-section of the community. But it would be completely antithetical to the whole point of our plan to do this, and completely inconsistent with the equity goals that drove this 4-year process to come up with this bold change to the way we do our middle school plan, to delay it so that certain students could avoid living through some construction at their middle school. So I just wanted to be clear that that's not on the agenda. And I don't think it will or should be. That's all I have to say, President Brown.
Well, I thank you, Ty, for saying what you said. Good evening, everyone. It is a fabulous and great evening, and I'm so happy to spend my Wednesday with you all. Thank you to the public commenters. Ty, I think you hit the nail right on the head in regards to my sentiments around some of the comments that we heard this evening. Additionally, I want to thank my board colleagues for the comments that they offered, especially you, Director Siegel, highlighting how our students, and some of them for the first time, had the opportunity, many of them for the first time, had the opportunity to vote in this election. And so I always thank you for the advocacy and for the leadership that you show on our high school campus, but also for the representation that you provide to all of our students in BUSD. So thank you for that. My comments are incredibly short. And so I am actually going to pass it over to Superintendent Formoy-Thiel.
Incredibly short. Good evening, everyone. Like Director Vasudit said, I wanted to highlight that we continue to celebrate Indigenous Peoples Heritage Month in November at BUSD. Hence the Zoom backgrounds that you see on our screens and the one on the wall of Director Sinai. Please visit our BUSD website and look under Family Resources in the menu bar to find teaching guides, family resources, as well as reading lists. I also want to recognize our community partners for the fabulous Dias de los Muertos event that was held on October 29th at Berkeley High School. I personally had a chance to shop some of those tables that Director Vasudev talks about, spent lots of money, but supported a great cause. And I got a chance to see the beautiful babies of Sylvia Mendez perform. We don't talk a lot about BTA, but BTA recently hosted a wonderful event as a part of Unity Week. They also had Unity Week this week, like BHS, and they had a BTA resource fair. And this event involved representatives from various organizations sharing college and career opportunities with our students, organizations that included the Department of Rehab, Diabo Valley College, Berkeley City College, Berkeley Public Library, Walgreens, Youth Work, Bridge to Work, and so many more. including military recruiters. And it was a very successful event that was really exciting for our students. And it was clear that our students are excited about their futures and excited about the opportunity to plan their future, and the options for them are vast. I also want to thank our BTA case managers, Amanda Cardno and academic counselor Sophina Jones, for coordinating this event for our BTA babies. I got to say congratulations to our Jackets football team, who are the what? Get ready, the league champions, and have won their way into the championship game. Going to be competing against San Ramon this Friday at 7 p.m. at Berkeley High School. Go Jackets. Juice the, what is it called? What is it, Ian? Juice the beer. No, juice the
Juice the
Choose the
jacket.
jackets.
I still don't understand jackets, juice, bee. Anyway, bees, we are excited. So come out and support our Berkeley High School football team. Also, we've begun Meet the Symphony events at our elementary schools. I'm shouting out every single grade span. So in our elementary schools, we have Meet the Symphony events, and that is in partnership with Berkeley Symphony. And these are 50-minute whole school assemblies where Ming Luke and the Berkeley Symphony play for and interact with our students. Students learn about how music is made, what an orchestra is, and each year they focus on a cultural, musical, or historical theme. Today's Meet the Assembly was at Sylvia Mendez, and it was fantastic. Our principals will be reaching out to families and staff next week to explain how our at-home tests will be made available so everyone can test for COVID on the Sunday returning from the fall break. Currently, Alameda County, as Director Vasudep mentioned, is in the low CDC COVID-19 community level. So we are at a low level, and we have noted a small uptick in BUSD cases recently, but nothing at all like surge levels that we saw during January and February of last year. And so next week, we're going to be updating our school community about how to prepare for the increase in testing if we see increases in cases. We're going to continue to urge vaccination in our upcoming clinics and remind our community of other important risk mitigation practices, including masking and staying home when ill. Many of our COVID risk mitigation protocols are also effective against other respiratory viruses during this time, including RSV and the flu. So one more plug, I have to do this for Trish and for Director Vasudep and for all of our community. We are hosting vaccination and booster clinics in partnership with the City of Berkeley this Saturday and next Saturday at Rosa Parks Elementary School. I'm almost done, but you want to hear this one. Friday is a district-wide holiday. No school for you, no work for me. Always work for me, but it is, we are celebrating Veterans Day. And we want to also just sincerely and seriously thank all of those who serve in our military and who have served in our military. We also have fall break coming up for those babies that are counting down, not Director Segal. And that is where we're going to be closed for the full week, November 22nd through November 26th. Finally, thank every single person, BUSD staff, families, and community members for participating in my listening and learning events, meetings, and conversations. Director Sinai was like, aren't your 90 days up? Kind of, sort of, depending on when you started counting. But I have listened a lot, and I'm going to be spending the next several weeks synthesizing all of your feedback and experiences in preparation for sharing some key themes and next steps. And with that, President and Acting President, I am done with my comments. Thank you.
My term is over. Yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you for your comments, Superintendent Formuerto. And thank you, Director Alper, for your time, although it is over. But thank you for your time leading as, or presiding over our meeting tonight. You did a fabulous job. It was like riding a bike. I'm glad you remembered how to do it. It was good.
Maybe I'll stick around for 4 more years.
Hey, that would be wonderful. Go ahead. If you want to, stick around for 4 more years, but I'm sure that there are other things that you want to accomplish in your life. So, but it's okay. We are going to move to our consent calendar. So if there is a motion to approve the consent calendar, we will receive it at this time.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you as well. Ms. Chavez, can you please call the roll?
Yes, Director Segal,
Yes.
Director Vasudev,
Yes.
Director Sinai,
Yes.
Director Alper,
Yes.
and President Brown.
Yes, thank you so much. The motion passes and the consent calendar is approved for this evening. We are going to move on to our discussion items. We have 2 discussion items for the evening. I'm sure that in the beginning, Director Alper talked about item 14.3 and how it will be removed from this evening's agenda. But we do have item 14.1 and item 14.2. The first one, our first discussion item for tonight, 14.1, is the update on our workforce housing. And so I'll go ahead and pass it over to the superintendent at this time, who will introduce the presenters for this discussion item. Thank you.
Thank you, President Brown. For this item, we have John Calise and several amazing members of his team who are going to be presenting to us an update on workforce housing. John.
Great. Thank you, Superintendent. Good evening, everybody. So yeah, tonight is just an update on the workforce housing project. We wanted to share with you some of the renderings and some sample floor plans of what we have and just kind of give the board an update of where we are. Before I pass this over to the team from Saha and Abode, I do want to really just say a great deal of thanks to this board. Everyone on this board has done so much work, from our subcommittee, Ty and Julie, to Julie. Director Sinai, you've really been the champion of this project since day one, and I know that everyone is really grateful and thankful for that. Khadijah, you've had so much input, and I really appreciate it. Joining us tonight, we have Megan Pearson from Abode Communities, as well as a few of her colleagues from Saha. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Megan. But we're excited to show you this and talk about the fact that we anticipate construction to begin in the third quarter of 2024, opening in 2026. And we realize it's definitely an ambitious schedule, but working through this with our consultants, this is where we see that it is right now, barring any unforeseen conditions or continued delays that we're seeing with supply chain issues. So with that, Megan, do you want to go ahead and share your screen and walk us through?
Yep. Thank you. We're, like John said, we're super excited to be here tonight to give you an update on this super exciting project. And I'm here with Eve Stewart from Saha, who's our development partner, and Laura Regis from Abode Communities is also here, and Kevin Markarian, who's from Piatak Architects. So with that, I will get started. So we just kind of wanted to start with a summary of kind of what we've done since last time you saw us, which was quite a long time ago. So we've been engaged in a lot of community outreach. We've had 3 design subcommittee meetings. We've had 3 general community meetings, and then we've had a series of meetings with different community groups. We had a Berkeley Adult School listening session, and we did the BUSD employee survey. So all that information that we gathered in that community outreach informed what you're going to see in a minute. And just to remind you of what the project is, it's 110 units, a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. There's a variety of amenities and open space. We will be providing parking for residents and parking for the Berkeley Adult School. And the rents will be affordable at a range of incomes between 30% and 120% area median income. And just a reminder of where we're talking about. It is located on the Berkeley Adult School parking lot on San Pablo Avenue between Virginia and Francisco. And you can see it here in the blue. This is our site plan. So the Berkeley Adult School is back here. Here's San Pablo, and here is our new proposed development with the garage and our lobby. And here's our ground floor plan. So what we're proposing on the ground floor is the parking for the residents of the building, a bike room where people can store their bikes, and then our entry lobby, which will have the mail. This is where our property management offices will be. And we have a variety of rooms that will be smaller meeting rooms if people want to, come down and do some work, get out of their house, or if they want to have a meeting, maybe if they want to do tutoring with students, we're providing some space for that. And these are just kind of some inspirational images of what we're going to develop it to look like. And then the upper floors, so this is the second floor. So the second floor will have the open space for the residents of the building. That's what you see here. There'll be a community room, our laundry, a fitness room, and then of course, all of the units kind of surrounding that. And a little bit later in the presentation, we'll kind of get into more what we're proposing to be in this courtyard. But this is going to be the general open space for the residents. And the unit plans. So as I said, we have 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms. So this this is early on, but this is kind of where we're looking at for the square footage of the plans and what we're kind of proposing that they will be. And then this is the really exciting part. So this is our proposed design for the development. Right now you're looking from the corner of San Pablo and Virginia. So kind of where it says Berkeley Adult School, this would be the entrance for the Berkeley Adult School parking. And then this would be the residential building with the parking entrance over here. And the next view is going to be along Virginia Street. So once again, you see the Berkeley Adult School parking here, and then our building here. And Berkeley Adult School, of course, is back here. This is a view from San Pablo and the Berkeley Adult School parking again. So this is what you'll see if you're driving along San Pablo. This is the view from San Pablo and Francisco. So as you see, we're kind of trying to treat this corner here slightly different from the rest of the building. This down here is where our lobby will be, our property management, those small meeting spaces. And this is the view of the courtyard. So this is the, inside the courtyard, the community room is back here. The laundry and fitness are over here. And we'll have a series of planters and seating. I think I have a slide that shows a little bit more what we're proposing to put there. So we're proposing some planting beds where people could plant some vegetables. We're proposing a sculptural play element on a sloped lawn. So this would kind of be where the kids could play, run around. There'll be some play equipment there for them. Some hammocks in this area that's a little bit more maybe quiet, relaxing, and then some more tables and chairs to sit in. And then the images at the top are just kind of inspirational images. We're not proposing any lawn, so don't feel like what's going on here. Everything's going to be low water usage, but this is more just inspirational of what the hammocks might look like, what the sculptural play element's going to look like, and kind of what those planters will look like. We're looking for, a really lush green environment that feels really welcoming and fun, and people can come out here and meet their neighbors or just come out and enjoy the open space. All right, so that's the design. The other thing we just wanted to kind of put into your minds that is going to be the next step that we're doing is our governance committee. So this committee is really going to be looking at how the BUSD workforce housing development will be governed. So it's going to set the policy. And some of the things that this committee will look at include like the initial application lottery process, ongoing lease up, what are the rules going to be, how is that going to work, what residents have to do to qualify for this development, the terms of that residency, what happens if there's a dispute, and then what happens if somebody leaves the district, what happens there. So that's just some of the samples, but they'll be looking at things like that, kind of how the building's going to be run. And for this committee, we're proposing the first meeting in December. And you can kind of see the makeup here of the committee. It's going to be a slice of different people from the district, and then representatives from Abode and Saha. And we're anticipating there to be 3 meetings that will take place over the 3 following months. So the first meeting in December, and then meeting in January, February, and March. So we're looking forward to getting started with that committee. And that is the end of the presentation. I don't know if there's any questions for us. I went really fast, but trying to respect your time.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate the presentation. And you did go pretty fast. We'll go ahead and entertain questions from the Board of Education. We'll start with our first hand, I think is Director Julie Sinai. So go ahead, Director Sinai, with your question.
Thank you. I'm very excited to see the progress and to see the continued work on this. I have a couple questions. If you could talk a little bit about the work that you did with the design committee, and is the design that you identified one that came out of that process? And maybe a little bit about the time, like the next steps in relation to the development project, in the sense of whether it's like the next step is architect and design, when the permit process, just so that we could have a little bit of a timeline on benchmarks. And maybe Director Calise, that's something that you could submit to the board later, so that we could have a little bit more of a sense of what's going to happen. I mean, if it doesn't break ground for a year and a half, seems like a long time, but like why a year and a half? What happens during that period?
Yep.
And then I have one more question after that, but I'll let you answer that.
Okay, starting with in terms of the design, yes, definitely this design was finessed and influenced and, inspired by the design subcommittee. We kind of had some preliminary design and we brought it to them as we developed, and they commented on it and we responded to those comments. So I would say definitely it's a product of that process. It was a really great process, and we were happy to have, all those different members represented on the design committee.
Can you remind us what the constituency on the design committee was?
Yeah, so there was representatives from BUSD, from the unions. There was a representative from Berkeley Adult School, and then there were several community representatives from the surrounding neighborhoods. And then, of course, we were on it. And of course, John and Prachi. So it was great. We had a lot of, different viewpoints and different opinions, and I think it was really helpful. And we felt like we came up with a really great design that addresses as many of the comments as we could. And by the end of it, everybody was happy with the design. So then to your next question as to what's going to happen between now and construction start. Well, a lot of stuff. One thing we're working on right now is our entitlements. So the entitlements are, the approvals you have to get to be able to develop what you want to develop. So we're working on that with the city of Berkeley right now. We'll also be working, over 2023 on advancing the design so we can submit, for those building permits to build it. And then the other big thing we'll be working on is the financing. So we'll be applying to the financing sources. And, unfortunately, those state sources take a really long time to get back to you. So, that's pretty much what we'll be doing. I don't know, Eve, Laura, Kevin, if you want to add anything to that.
No, thanks, Megan. I think that's great. I mean, I think we're always trying to be realistic, yet we're optimistic realists in terms of schedule. Sometimes things do take longer. I mean, I think our goal is really to be in construction early 2024. That does mean that things need to line up perfectly with the funding, the state funding that we'll be pursuing. So I think it's possible. It's also possible that if we miss any of those timelines, that we could be pushing later into 2024.
Great. And in the sense of the financing, we still have the security of the Measure O funds from the city that will go toward the project to be leveraged.
Yes,
And
we already have those
that.
funds committed. So yeah.
Great. The only other question I had is around the timeline with the governance committee. I think I'm really, as Executive Director Calise will know, that I'm very excited that that's getting scheduled and moving on. I'm a little nervous about, thinking that it's going to get done in the 3 meetings. There's, I think, a lot of work that needs to get done, including legal review and making sure we're aligned with, local tenancy law and things like that. So I want to make sure that we don't rush it, and that people are doing the due diligence and getting examples from some of our other educator housing that's happening. But the nuances and making sure that we're as fair as possible with not just the lottery, but also all of the regulations that need to go into a lease term. I just want to make sure that we don't rush through it and that we take the time. And my understanding, and maybe clarify for me, is that really it's a BOD who holds the lease. So it's a BOD who needs to make sure, while there's input from the district, and there's definitely input from our labor partners on how we want to structure it, it's not the district who's holding the leases, it's a BOD. So it's a BOD who has to make sure that we're complying with all of the regulatory and legal, tenancy law and all that kind of stuff, because it's a unique relationship with the questions you put on the slide. Like, what if you no longer work in the district? What does that mean? So just making sure that we're really careful about that, so that our employees, when they do get the housing, are very clear on how it's gonna operate.
Director Sinai, if I can take that, I think our initial thinking on this, if I recall, and with saying that we were setting up these 3 meetings, was really for a BOD to come in and be able to talk about some of those tenancy laws, but just to get a feeling from our labor partners, right, who are going to be the occupants of this building, of what do we feel like it should be. I don't think that we anticipate we'll be able to complete it in 3 meetings. And the other thing is, the purpose of the governance committee is it's an advisory committee, right? What we want to do, since this is a BUSD workforce housing project, but that it's being built by Saha and managed by a BOD, is for the board to basically sign off and say, yes, this seems like how we would want our workforce housing to be governed. So I apologize, because I think that might have been a little bit ambiguous the way that we wrote that on the slide. But I think it's really just those first 3 meetings to just kind of talk about even some of the broader questions of how long should people be able to live there, right? What happens if they no longer work for BUSD, those questions. So, but I don't think that's our intent to say we're going to cram all that information and make those decisions over 3 months.
Great, thanks. And I encourage it, and I have, this is my last opportunity probably to chime in a whole lot on it, but is the UC Berkeley, Center for Cities and Schools has done a lot of research around educator housing, and they're right here, parent in the district, with Jeff Vincent. If there's ways that we can engage them in any of the research in helping us, I think they would be really eager, and supportive. They want to see this succeed. And I gave all of my board colleagues their handbook that they did researching educator housing. So we have a resource right here in our own community that we should definitely tap when we can. And, if there's any ways as, a community member, I can continue to support this, I think it's going to be so valuable, even though it takes a while to get these units built. Once they're built, I'm really excited to see what will happen with it. And then, the possibility that we look for the next opportunity site, after that is always on the table, but I'm really excited about these 110 units getting built. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Sinai, and I'm sure that you're going to have plenty of opportunity to continue to work on this project. So thank you.
We certainly hope so. Director Alper.
Thanks, President Brown. I also want to thank Director Sinai for all her leadership on this project, and Director Calise and Ms. Stevenson and your whole team, really deserve a ton of credit. It's a lot of work. It's not something that districts typically do, although, as Director Sinai just mentioned, more and more are. And our city partners have been really wonderful and indispensable, really indispensable, because of, we needed those Measure O funds, and the mayor's been really supportive, and Councilmember Kesarwani, whose district this is in, has been very supportive. And I just wanted to call out one other person who really was there, even from maybe even before Director Sinai, which is our former colleague, Josh Daniels, who championed educator housing, has been championing it for years, and deserves a lot of credit for setting us down this path. And then, of course, our union partners who have been so supportive and encouraging and helpful in thinking through along the way how to make this work. So I'm super excited about it too. I won't make the same offer that Director Sinai did, but I will be thrilled to watch from the sidelines. And my parents live in the neighborhood. They're just a few blocks away, so they're going to be neighbors of this incredible new development. And for what it's worth, they're really excited about it. So thanks.
Thank you for your comment, Director Alper, or your comments rather, Director Alper. And I don't know if you get to choose if you're not going to be still helping out or not. So I think I get that choice at least for another couple of weeks or so. But I don't see any other questions from the board, and so Ms. Pearson, thank you so much for presenting to us tonight, for your thorough presentation. And Director Calise, thank you, of course, for all of your support and your help with this work. I do want to take the opportunity, Director Alper mentioned the work that and the pathway and the groundwork that Josh Daniels did, which we appreciate and highlight and celebrate. But I also want to appreciate Director Sinai. As soon as you started this work on the board, you have been a strong champion advocating for it. And so just as everyone else has offered and said this evening, I want to say on behalf of the board, thank you so much for your hard work, for your diligence, and thank you for continuing your work. We love you so much. All right, you all, thank you for this item. We will now move to item 14. Oh, I'm sorry. Director Calise.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll now move to item 14.2, which is another discussion item on the middle school student assignment administrative regulation. So I'll turn it back over to Superintendent Ford Morthell for this item.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, board members, community members, and families. I'm going to do this presentation in collaboration with Francisco Martinez, who's our admissions manager. Can we please project the slide?
Hold on 1 second.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. So the purpose of this presentation is to provide a brief, high-level review of the history of the board's decision to move BUSD to a 3 middle school zone enrollment district, and to call out some key components of the administrative regulations. I want to distinguish the administrative regulations from the policy. The board approved a policy to create a 3-zone middle school system here in Berkeley. The administrative regulations are how we as a staff plan to implement that policy. And so there is no vote, but there is an opportunity to engage the board of directors in discussion about some of the key components of the ARs or administrative regulations. And of course, we've heard from our families who spoke tonight and others in previous communications. And our goal and our intent is to listen to all of that feedback, particularly the board's feedback and direction, to finalize our administrative regulations for the middle school enrollment policy. Next slide. We at BUSD want to continue to move towards ensuring excellence, engagement, and enrichment to all students who attend our schools, early childhood through high school. And the middle school assignment policy and admin regulations that you're going to hear about will really be an opportunity for us to be more in service of our equity. We are also committed to ensuring that these 4 E's will be real at each and every middle school, and that regardless if a student goes to Longfellow, Willard, or King, our charge is to enable and inspire all of them and all of their diversity to achieve academic excellence and make positive contributions to the world. Next slide. In addition to helping us achieve our equity goal, this rezoning and middle school assignment system continues a legacy of BUSD. that was the first major school system to voluntarily integrate its schools. And it also speaks to our commitment to have a diverse, integrated school community across every community in our district. I'm now going to pass the mic to Francisco Martinez, our admissions manager, who's going to share with you again a brief review of the policy, highlight changes in zones and map, and elevate key aspects of the administrative regulations, or ARs. Francisco?
Sorry, let me I got, hold on 1 second. Let me go back to forgive me. Okay. I wanted to start by saying that student integration is not an easy thing to do. If it were easy, everybody would do it, and we wouldn't be here like having this discussion tonight. I would like to go back to a little bit just before 1968, when the district first integrated the schools. I remember reading about how some board members were recalled because they voted to integrate the schools in Berkeley in 1968. With that in mind, following the goal of 1968, in 1994, the school board at that point decided that they wanted to integrate the middle schools. And at that point, they decided that they were going to do a two-zone model for the middle schools. And in this map, what we see is that, like the implementation of that. So in here, you have seen this map, but if we want to go over again in a little bit of detail, what we have here is the two attendance zones. This orange area here, this is the King attendance zone. King Middle School is right here, but all of this is basically half of Berkeley is King Middle School. On this, the green one, this is for Willer, and Willer is right here. But one of the things that that the school district didn't do at that time is that in 1994 is that it didn't give an attendance zone to Longfellow. Longfellow became 1995 became the third district middle school. Longfellow became at that point, and Longfellow is right here in South Berkeley, what we call the Flats. Longfellow became what we a district-wide middle school. The goal also was to create Longfellow as an arts and technology magnet school. And the purpose of being a magnet school was that that school, by having the designation and the extra funding, that it would attract a diverse student population, and that it would be diverse and it would be integrated because it would be drawing students from throughout Berkeley. And that worked for a few years. Over time, unfortunately, our three middle schools became segregated. So the whole notion of having three diverse schools worked for some time, but over time that didn't work. So our schools right now are not diverse and they're not integrated. I'm showing you this slide that represents the unduplicated students. We showed you more before, but we don't, and this time we are only showing you one. So the unduplicated students include students who get free and reduced lunch, the students that are English learners, students that are homeless or foster youth. So in here, we see the discrepancy in our three middle schools. In 2014 and 15, in that school year, you can see in this graph how about 40% of the students at King were unduplicated students, and in King for Willer and Longfellow, it was about 55 students. Over time, when we get to last year, which it was 2021-22, we see the bigger discrepancy that exists in our three middle schools of those students that are the most needy in our school district. Here, about 65% of the students at Longfellow are students, unduplicated students, whereas at King and Willer, although Willer used to be about 55, that number decreased, and where they're like about 28% of the students that are attending King and Willer are unduplicated, but there's a big discrepancy on with our other middle school, which is Longfellow. In 2004, following our goal of student diversity, we created a new way in 2004 of how we were going to assign students in Berkeley so that the schools would be diverse and integrated. At that time, we wanted, in 2004, we created, in addition to race, which was the model that we used to use before 2004, we wanted to expand the definition of diversity. So we included parent education. We included the socioeconomic status of the students, and we got that from when we did it in 2004, from the 2000 census. And we also use race because at that point the board didn't want to give out the legacy of race of the schools. So what we did, we created what we call a composite diversity map. And so this is a map of Berkeley. So just so you get to see where we are, this part right here is Albany. I-80 is right here. Oakland is on the bottom part of my screen, and Cal is right here. So these are the Berkeley Hills, and this is what we call the flats. So on that time when we created this this diversity category map, so diversity category 1, it roughly covers what is the flats or West Berkeley, this yellow area here, when we first developed this map. And diversity category 2 was this purple area that was kind of like what we say is kind of mid-Berkeley. And the Berkeley Hills is what we call diversity category 2. So diversity category 1 were students who were, for the most part, not everybody, but on the average, on the aggregate, because what we have done, we call these little blocks, planning areas, which is between 4 and 8 city blocks. So in these city blocks, we have students and then we plotted them. And so we know that, and at this time when we developed this map, that about 58% of the students that came to our schools came from diversity category 1, which is the yellow area. And they tend to be the students who were lower socioeconomic status, lower parent income. And this is on the average, not everybody, but on the average, lower income, and also they tended to be students of color. On the opposite end of it, in this blue area, which is diversity category 3, that's where we found students that were more affluent, the parents were more educated, and they tended to be students that were not of color. So this is the planning area that we developed in 2004, and this map is our student assignment system for the elementary school we developed over the elementary school is a model for student integration nationwide. So they look at Berkeley as one of the schools that was able to assign students in a manner that it achieved student integration and not running afoul of Prop 209, which is the limit, how race could be used. And as a reminder, last week the Supreme Court heard a case about affirmative action, which many believe is going to end sometime soon. So over time, the composite diversity map has changed. So this, one of the things that we did, we were waiting for the 2020 census data to be able to update our map. So things have changed since like 2018 when we last updated our map. So this map reflects the diversity categories in the district. So this is, again, it's a composite diversity map that uses the 2020 census data of parent education and parent income and race. And we created this. One of the things, again, King is right here. This white lines in here tells us about, like, this is the north zone. So we did it because we need to use it for the elementary schools. This is the north zone here, the central zone, and the southeast zone. We decided to put numbers in the maps so that we could see that in the maps themselves, there's children that live in there. And one of the things that we know is that in this area right here is the most densely populated area of Berkeley. So you see that in here, like there's like 30 students, whereas you look in here, there's only 7. So this area, especially what is called diversity category 1, this light yellow greenish, is diversity category 1. So things have changed since we first developed this map. One of the things that you can see in here, diversity category 1 on the left-hand side used to be West Berkeley, and diversity category 2 kind of mid Berkeley, and diversity category 3, the hills. In here, with the 2020 census data, that has changed. So you see that the very part of West Berkeley is now diversity category 2. And diversity category 1 is kind of like throughout Berkeley. And again, in here, diversity category, on the diversity categories, we use socioeconomic status, parent education, and we use race. Also, I told you that before that how have changed the diversity categories. Here, diversity category 1, which used to be 58%, which was the largest student population that comes from this area. Now it is only 44%. Diversity category 2 for with the 2 new census data is 29 and 27 for diversity category 3. Again, diversity category 3 is the Berkeley Hills here. So we developed this map so we can compare both maps, what we used to have before and how things have changed once we got the 2020 census data. So you can see that. So what we have done to get to where we are, we have done a lot. We began this process in 2018, or like we can say sometimes it was 2017 when we first began talking about this process. So, but we began in earnest in 2018. But the pandemic and it slowed things down. But we began having community meetings. We had 25 community meetings. We last year from the spring of 21 to 22. So there were 25 community meetings that included board updates, that included affinity groups. It included 2 surveys throughout the community because we wanted the community to be informed as to what was happening. And in fact, the time that was extended by 1 year, we were supposed to have made a decision about the middle school process last year on November of 2021, but it was extended by the board for an additional year because the board wanted us to make sure that we had a robust parent engagement and an engagement with the community, which we did. On June 15, the board approved the 3 middle school zone model. And today we're here because we are soliciting the input from the board as we are finalizing the administrative regulations. And we value what you have to say. Because sometimes I can tell you that working sometimes with a few people, we miss some of the little things that it just, we take it for granted. So once the administrative regulations are done, it is our intention is that we're going to communicate with our community about what the process is going to be and how we're going to assign students to our middle schools. We normally begin that process in December, and families submit their forms in January. So we want to start like as soon as December starts to inform families about what the process is and what they need to do to enroll their kids for the 6th grade. So now we get to the big map. So this is the map that we're going to use to assign students with the 3 attendance zones. We use the diversity category map from the 2020 census data to get to this map to make sure that, because we wanted to make sure that once we implemented policy, that our schools were diverse and that our schools were integrated. So this is the work to get to where we are here. This has taken us 4 years to get to this map. And in this map, we have the proposed 3 attendance zones for our middle schools. Again, the board approved the 3 zones in March. Not in March, but in June. One of the things that we did, I want to explain this map so you get a sense of what it has. There's this white line here in the middle. And this line in here, on the left-hand side, this side is what is right now the King Middle School. And on the other side of the white line is Willard. So we wanted you to see that line because we wanted you to see that we were taking parts of the King zone and parts of the Willard zone to create a new zone for Longfellow. And so in here, King is right here, and this purplish color, this would be the new attendance zone for King, and it's a little bit smaller than it used to be because we're taking part of it. The same is true for Willard. So we're taking part of Willard, and we're assigning it to Longfellow to create an attendance zone. For Longfellow, is their attendance zone is much smaller. So it would be this zone here, which is in yellow. And what we have done it and drawn this map and the attendance zones in a way that it takes part of the Berkeley, West Berkeley or the Flats, the Middle Berkeley and the Berkeley Hills. So that doing this proportionally, it ensures that our middle schools are diverse and they're integrated. So again, in here, Albany is right here, I-8 is here, Cal is right here. You know, there was something that came to our attention today that somebody pointed out that Millville, we put it here, but Millville should be here. So it's just a typo that we need to correct. But that hasn't any effect. It was just a misplaced sign here. One of the things that we are proposing, so like each school has an attendance zone, just like we do for the elementary schools, where we have 3 attendance zones. Families can request to attend if they live, let's say, in the King zone. If they want to attend in what is now the Longfellow zone, they can do that when we have open enrollment, and we consider them. We will be consider them after we consider the kids that are in zone, which is the same process that that we follow for the elementary schools. Again, this process would create more integrated schools in our district for the middle schools. One of the things that we have done in here is to look at what it would look like if we implement a 3 attendance zone model. What would the diversity index look like at the 3 middle schools? So really quickly, this one of the things, because our schools were not diverse, the diversity category 1, I'm just going to point out a couple of things. In here, this is what we use, because we were not using diversity categories in the past, but we just, if we were to have used them and used the students' addresses, what the schools look like. So we did it using the old system, or the system that we have, the 2 zones. And in here, Longfellow was 71% of the students that were coming to Longfellow were coming from diversity category 1 or which is in the Flats. And so there was a big discrepancy between the 3 middle schools. However, once we do a simulation, and what we have done is using 3 years of data. So we use the students that are in the 3rd, 4th, and the 5th grade. We looked at the new diversity category 1 and what does that look like. So we go from about 46 to 50% of the students. So it would that all of the schools, diversity category 1 students would be representative, proportionately, and the 3 middle schools would be diverse in diversity category 1. The same thing would be for diversity category 2, between 24 and 27% of the student population. And diversity category 3, again, diversity category 3 is the Hills of Berkeley. So we would go from like about 23 at Willard and 27 at King and 28 at King and 27 at Longfellow, which again, this would let us know that the goal of having diverse school would be accomplished by moving into a 3-zone model. The following slides, we're going to tell you using what we're going to do as we move into the administrative regulations. Again, this is how we're going to implement the policy. And again, like the superintendent indicated to you, the administrative regulations are not approved by the board, but we are soliciting your input and we value your input as to what you have to say. So transportation has been a big topic of discussion from the very beginning. We currently, we just need to say that currently we do not provide transportation to any middle school student. So that is not happening. But we understand that some students, especially for Longfellow, that distance for them, because Longfellow is much farther west than any other school, that some families may need transportation. So the district has proposed that 1 bus be provided to students that in the new attendance on a Longfellow that live 1.5 miles or more from the school. One bus can accommodate about 52 students. We have been in the discussion with our transportation department to see what they think about this, this one bus and how much, whether it might be sufficient. They believe, based on their experience, that one bus would be sufficient. And that's because they have provided transportation to Longfellow in the past. And from their experience, they had one bus before, and there was not that many students took advantage of that bus. Very few students rode the bus when transportation was provided. They also, from their experience, they also know that students in middle school many times that they don't want to ride a yellow bus. But but we again, we want to provide one bus, and we call this like express bus, not like an elementary school bus that would be stopping in the main location, but a school bus that would be an express model, where they would stop in a few designated areas to try to limit the amount of time that the students would be in the bus. In addition to that, we have been working closely with AC Transit to see what kind of support they can provide to us. What they have told us is that they cannot provide or new routes. It is too cost prohibitive for them to create new routes. We know that some school districts have more transportation, especially like in Oakland, but what they tell us is that that those are legacy routes, and that they have tried to eliminate them, but politically they cannot do it. But they cannot create any new bus routes in Oakland either. What they can provide is that they have something that is called the Transit Pass Student Transit Pass Program, which is transportation for students that are in middle and the high school. And it provides free transportation for those students that are eligible to receive that. And in essence, it means those students that are low income, they can get a free bus pass, and AC Transit can provide that. One of the things that we intend to do, and I intend to do, is that when we assign students and we send them assignment letters in March, that we will provide information to them about this service. If in case that they don't, because I didn't know anything about it, in case that they don't know, that if they are able to take advantage of these free bus passes, that they can do that. The two-way immersion program, we have one in the district, and we only have it at Longfellow. I'm sorry, not a Longfellow, but a Sylvia Mendes. In the past, it used to be 3 elementary schools, but we consolidated into that. What we can tell you about that program, this is the most requested program or school in the district. So a lot of families want to go to the two-way immersion program because it provides a truly beneficial program, not only to students that are EL students that want to maintain their language, and they want, but also to students who do not speak Spanish that want to learn Spanish. So, but this model was designed for students that are English learners, for them to learn English, and for students who speak only English, for them to learn Spanish. So this is a great benefit for a lot of students. These programs, like I said, it is something that many families want. And what I can tell you is that the most phone calls that we get in the district about elementary schools, the vast majority, by far, is about two-way immersion, the two-way immersion program. So families want to be there. So the benefits of the two-way immersion cannot be fully imparted when students only attend elementary school. We really need those students to continue on to middle school and to the high school to gain all of the benefits that this program has to offer. And this is the information that we provide to families, especially when we see them when they're entering kindergarten, which we have, we had a kindergarten fair. And by the way, we're gonna do a kindergarten fair this year, and it will be in person again. So we're going to start that again. So we want to reaffirm the commitment to the two-way immersion program at not only at Sylvia Mendes, but to Longfellow. So the students that attend Sylvia Mendes, we want to enroll them in their for their middle school education at Longfellow, irrespective of where they live, because we want to solidify the positive effects that the two-way immersion program provides in Berkeley to the English learner students in the district. families can request other open enrollment if they are Sylvia Mendez other schools outside Longfellow, but again, they will be considered after we have considered the students and their attendance zone, because Longfellow, again, it would be a feeder schools program. Siblings. One of the things that that we do always at the district, we want families to attend school at the same school. We do not want families to attend, like one school, one elementary school for one kid, and then have two schools that where they have to drop their kids off. We want them to attend the same school. So sibling priority will continue to be in effect, just like we do now, just like we do at the elementary schools. So any student that is currently attending King, Willard, or Longfellow can have their siblings attend the same school. But this will work that, let's say a kid that is right now at Longfellow in the sixth or seventh grade, and next year they will be in the 8th and 7th. If they have an incoming sibling that will be in the 6th grade, we would want them to be in the same school. And we want them to, so sibling priority only works when siblings are attending school together. Another aspect of siblings that after a lot of consideration and a lot of discussion and deliberation, we are recommending that we provide a 1 year, but only 1 year legacy enrollment. The legacy enrollment would work in this instance when one student that is in the 5th grade right now, and they have one student in the 8th grade are either King, Willard, or Longfellow. Normally, the sibling priority would be rupture for those kids. So we want to provide for the 23-24 school year, 1 year of legacy assignment for those kids. So if those kids request to attend the school where the siblings attended just graduated from or were promoted from the middle school, we will honor that and we will give them an assignment for one, but it will be in effect only 1 year of legacy assignments for the district. And with that, I pass it on to Superintendent Iniquia.
Thank you, Francisco. So I wanted to just quickly go over next steps. As we said in the beginning and Francisco reiterated, our goal here is to listen, to hear discussion and feedback and take notes and take all of what we hear into consideration as we move to finalize the administrative regulations. As I believe that Director Alper mentioned, we also have a policy subcommittee meeting coming up where this will also be revisited. We plan to come back to the community in open session on November 30th, where we will share the finalized ARs. And then in December, the admissions office will begin communicating with our current 5th grade families, the middle school enrollment process, and make sure they are ready to enroll their babies in middle schools. Something that was not said that is not called out in our administrative regulations or the policy but we know is a focus is as we think about assigning these new zones and think about each of our middle schools and our 4 E's, we are exploring middle school programming and really doing our best to ensure there is opportunities at all of our schools to participate in programs like Umoja, like Puente, and other similar programs that exist at Longfellow. And so we are doing that work, and that will definitely be a significant part of our conversations when we get to budgeting season. And so with that, that's the end of our presentation, and we are now open to feedback and listening to discussion and questions from our board directors.
So I will stop sharing so that we can see each other.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you, Francisco, for the presentation and for all of your hard work on this. I always appreciate the little Berkeley history facts that you include in your presentation. You always help the community remind us of our core and remember why we are doing this work. At this time, are there any questions from the board? Seeing none, I'll go ahead with, Director Vasudev.
Hi, yes, I know that I have sent some of these questions electronically, and but I did want to follow up with them just so that everybody could hear. So first, I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Martinez, for the background and echo what President Brown said. I do appreciate just like the comprehensive timeline of how long this process has been going on, and all the different decision points that not only this board but previous boards have taken in order for this policy to go into effect. I think in terms of the I'll just start like with the administrative regulations. A couple of things that, and as you know, we're hearing comments from parents who, particularly from our TWI program, and there's a couple of nuanced situations that have been flagged. And I know that we've talked about this, but I think it's important for the public to also hear, including the fact that, certain English language learners, as I've heard from our previous district TSA, are better served in King's newcomer program versus Longfellow. And that sometimes there are these unique situations at the beginning of the year where students that might have been assigned to Longfellow or might be coming from the TWI program are actually better served at King. And I know that in these one-off situations, right, and sometimes they'll write to a board member, the family will write to a board member, and then it will, communicate to you, Mr. Martinez, and then there's an internal process to help the family help place the student in the appropriate program. How are we dealing with nuanced cases where maybe you have a child that might be better fit? The King New program is unique. It's not the same in all the 3 middle schools. So in this situation, is this something that is addressed in the AR, or is this addressed as part of the master plan? And how do we explain that to our English language learner families who may have a child that might be assigned to one school, but really should be assigned to King's newcomer program?
So in regards to King, they have a unique program, as you said, the EL newcomer program. We don't plan to change any of the things that are happening at that school. If there is a student that needs to be at, because that's where the district put the resources at King Middle School for the newcomers. If they need those services, if they need to partake of those services, we will assign them to that school. I also believe that that the EL master plan is looking into that. So I'm thinking that in their recommendation is going to be part of their recommendations for the newcomer program, and that we don't have any intention whatsoever of any way affecting those kids that need to be in that program.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Martinez. And then I have a question for our superintendent. And I was listening to the discussion that we had on June 15th. And one of the things that I think Director Sinai had requested was, just like a work plan with key implement, just like being really clear on when we're going to implement certain things. So on transportation, right? Like I appreciate the additional research that's been done. But I think, the issue of the one bus has always come up as like the solution. And so for me, one of the questions that I still have is, did we look at students in South Berkeley who might currently be in Longfellow, but might be assigned now to King or to Willard? And do we know if they need transportation, if they're, 1.5 miles away from those schools, and if they also require transportation? So looking at, that segment of the population too. So that's one question. And then in terms of programming, I appreciate that we're flagging and have flagged the expansion of Umoja and Puente, right? Because if we're doing this for diversity, we should support our Black and Brown students equally at all 3 campuses. Super important. I'm glad that that's happening. But we know that we're entering an area of budget cuts, right? Like that's a financial forecast for the future. And so at the state level, and I'm concerned that we're implementing this without having a cost for like, what does it cost to expand these programs? What would it take, right? And we heard that feedback in a lot of these community forums, right? This is feedback that we've heard from our families. It's got to feel the same. The menu's got to feel the same. We want to make sure that our kids, particularly our kids of color, are supported the same, because if we're doing it in the name of diversity, then we should have the support systems in place for our Black and Brown students equally at all 3 sites. And so without knowing those details, it does feel a little bit like putting the cart before the horse. And I've said this before, so this is nothing new. I said this in June. I still continue to be concerned about implementation without having just more specificity around numbers.
Thank you, Director Vasudev. So I was not here in June when you said that, but what I will say is, and I'm sorry if I was too brief in my closing comments, but we are not just looking at making sure that we have Moja or Puente at the other 2 middle schools. What we're looking at is really analyzing the programs, affinity spaces, and supports that we have for students across those middle schools, and making sure that there are resources, supports, and affinity spaces for students at each of those. It may be the programs that you named, it may not be, and that does require for us to do some analysis. In terms of costs, I think when I said that we will be really making sure this is a critical part of the conversations during budgeting season. I think after that analysis, after we look at the programs that you just mentioned, Puente and Umoja, we look at their impact, we look at participation, we look at costs, we'll have a better idea of if and how we can expand those, but we'll also be able to speak to what programs exist at King and Willard, if it's not those that serve the same or similar purpose, and have a more, lengthy and I guess a deeper conversation about budget and costs. I do want us not to confuse the same with equity. And so I think the spirit of this is really to provide really make sure we're living up to our commitment to diversity, I think across our middle schools, like I briefly said, and like Francisco said throughout the presentation. And we are still committed to making sure we have quality programming at each school. And I don't know if not being able to say exactly which program will be where would be a reason for us to not move forward with our commitment to diversity and our belief that really changing our enrollment system and really being committed to these 3 zones will help us to increase diversity at our schools. A work plan was shared with the board on October 26th. And so I think that has the information that Director Sinai asked for. And if there's more information that you all are looking for, please let us know what that is and we'll make sure to get it to you as soon as possible.
Yeah, I guess, Superintendent, the last thing would be the transportation issue for the students in South Berkeley, right? Because the only solution that's been presented is that bus solution, that North Berkeley to Longfellow transportation solution. And I understand the limitations of AC Transit, being a transit planner myself, but I am concerned that, that's the same solution that we pitched at the community meetings. And I feel like, I'm not sure if that addresses all of the needs, right? Like, what about the kids that might be assigned to King and Willard now? How are they, if AC Transit's not going to pick them up, how are they going to get to those schools on time, right? And do we need to allocate additional resources?
So Francisco has been in most, if not all of the conversations with both AC Transit and our BUSD Transportation Department. So I'll let him respond to that question, Director Vasudeva.
So Ms. Vasudeva, like we have looked at transportations, like I have pushed really hard. I need you to know that I have pushed really hard AC Transit to see, like what they can do. That can they create a new route? Can they help us in any way? Is there anything that they can do? It's like we so I have really pushed, and I'm fully aware of that. We are providing only one bus. It's like, but it was also always like, what do we do with the kids that live in South Berkeley and kind of like around Malcolm X, and that they don't have transportation. For those kids, we believe that if the board were to direct us, again, spend additional resources, we can look at that, but we need to look at what we have in the right now. And so we believe that for those students, that having AC Transit provide us transportation for some of those students may be beneficial if they are low income, especially if they are low income. In addition, I need to tell you that the attendance zones for King and Willard, we're not expanding them. In fact, we're making them a little bit smaller than what they used to be. So the distance for some students that King and Willard is the attendance zone is not a solution, but it's an explanation that we are reducing their attendance zones for those 2 schools. And I believe that we want to continue our conversation with AC Transit to see if there's anything else they can do. And they have a bus. They don't have buses on Sacramento, but they do have buses on San Pablo Avenue. And I think that some students that live in the farther southwest part of Berkeley can take that bus and get as close as they can to King and then just walk for that, which would be less than a mile if they do that. And that's why we believe that the bus passes would benefit them greatly.
Director Sinai.
Thank you. I just want to start off by extending sincere appreciation to Mr. Martinez for all of the work that you have done over the year. I think you've responded to a number of the concerns and issues people have raised. The diversity, when you look at the diversity balance, you can't ignore the fact that the way the new maps are being drawn is going to create diverse schools, diverse middle schools in Berkeley, which is something I think we all don't just value, but are committed to for the health and well-being of our students. And I really want to appreciate all the work that you've done and that you've used. We asked, to make sure you use the 2020 census data, and you've, plugged in the 2020 census data and have shown us how demographic and socioeconomic shifts are happening in Berkeley, which we all know. But it's interesting to see it in the map itself. You've responded to the legacy sibling preference by gracing the 1 year. I really respect the way you started this presentation. Change is hard. And the first few years of change and the people who are in that transition bear the brunt and the weight of that change. And I'm empathetic to that, but I don't think we can slow down on what we need to do. We need to make it as supportive as we can for our families. But I feel like the due diligence and the work that you and your team have done has really been stellar. And I really want to appreciate you for that. I have a couple of questions that I'm hoping that maybe you could, maybe I'll do a couple of verbal questions, and then I just want to pull up one of the maps again. But we heard a number of families from Sylvia Mendez, and we've gotten a few emails that are, they don't want their, for whatever reasons, they think it's better for their student to transition out of the TWI program when they go to middle school. I'm not talking about the families that talked about the hardship and the illness in their families, because I think those families do have the opportunity to do an interdistrict or interzone transfer and look at what the conditions are. But if, I think I asked you offline, having two kids that went through the two-way immersion program, it was always projected and communicated that the integrity of the two-way immersion program is at its best when it's a K-8 program. And so I'm curious on how families are communicated with, either as they're in the kindergarten fair, or if you are aware, of just, if that's dialogue that happens at Sylvia. I mean, I know when we consolidated into one school, that was a shift, and the idea was that it would also, I mean, as you remember, I was a proponent of the feeder program for everybody. So even if a student decides that they're not going to be in the TWI anymore, they, if they transition to Longfellow, they can go into the quote English program, right? And still be with their friends and their family community that they've been in school with for the last 6 years of K-5. So I'm curious on how kind of the discussion around the K-8 model has, if you're aware, or if you know about how it's presented.
What I can tell you,
Director Sinai, before you, Francisco, before you answer that, Director Sinai, can I add a question to that in addition to how it's communicated to families? It is my understanding that it is a K-8 program. However, families can choose if they want to do the second part, but I just want to make sure, Francisco, you can highlight that as well.
Yeah.
I want to start with saying, so normally when we see those families for the very first time is when they're enrolling in kindergarten. And in the past, a lot of those families would have come to the kindergarten fair, and when they came in, and Sylvia Mendez was always has had a table that is really well attended, and I have been there where they have a lot of pamphlets about research, and the research is not about just going into an elementary school, but they look at it as like the benefits. To get the full benefits, not only they need to attend elementary school, middle school, and the high school in the program to get the benefits, because that's how you can tell how successful the kids are, because the whole purpose is for them to be bilingual and biliterate by the time they're fully bilingual biliterate, and so like they can take classes, AP classes, like AP Spanish when they're in high school. So that is communicated to families. I couldn't tell you what specifically was communicated to each family, but it is always our intent to make sure that those families gather, that they have that information. And I know that Sylvia Mendez has pamphlets about, the expectations that is, it's a long-term program. It is not an elementary school program, but it's a very long-term program. And that has been communicated at the kindergarten level, because many times we don't see those families at the middle, and when they're second grade, third, or fourth, we see them again when they're coming for middle school. So we miss all of that. But one of the things that I want to emphasize about this is like from the very beginning, when we began the engagement process in 2021 and in the spring and in the fall, we always communicated that the Sylvia Mendez was always to go to Longfellow. We didn't deviate from that. When it was a 3-zone model and when it was a feeder school model, that we wanted families to be informed that was the plan. We did, like we didn't hide anything. It's like I wanted to be like I told the superintendent that like it's things that are clear, and so we can tell them, because the more you sunshine something, you can see where the issues are, and then you try to create a process for that. So we were very upfront from the very beginning, and all of that information is on. We even posted it in. There are tons of town halls. We have town halls where. For DLAC, we had town halls in Spanish. We have towns for like one's affinity groups, with Latinos and Unidos. We had many different, because and it was the same presentation. I think Director Basudeo attended a few of them, and in Spanish and in English. And so like we did all of those things because we wanted, we wanted to make sure that the families were informed. So
okay.
No, go ahead.
Do you want to finish it? I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
No, I was going to say something, but I forgot when you started.
So, and then there was also discussion around the Longfellow construction and whether or not we could accommodate the students while construction was going on. I see that Executive Director Calise isn't on the line anymore, but is that something that you have been in conversation with?
I have been in some discussions. What I can tell you is that we're not. So this is a gradual process that we're doing. We're not going to do like 6, 7, and 8. All those. So we're going to start with 6th grade and then 7th grade and 8th grade. I believe it's a 3-year process. And Longfellow is expected to have like about 550 or so students, and so we're not adding more than that to that. And I'm pretty sure that Director Calise is planning to have that number of students, like the number of students that we have to be there next year and the year after next. So I am pretty sure that he planned for all of those things. He has never communicated that in any way that we should reduce the number of kids to facilitate the transition during construction at that school.
Okay. So I'm not going to make you pull up the maps, but I'll just maybe close on one comment around the transportation. And I think you've got one of the maps in the slide deck that shows the zones currently and then what the zones will look like. And I just want to remind us that status quo is we have kids traveling now and for decades from deep southwest, southwest Berkeley to King. And we have not provided transportation. We have folks coming from the hills, to Willard and to King, and we haven't provided transportation. I'm not saying that it wouldn't be great if we could, but we don't have the resources and we haven't historically. And I'm nervous about, I think the pass idea, I've always advocated with AC Transit that they provide youth bus passes for free. I heard a long story, and Director Vasudev, you probably know this much better than I do, but there is a bus driver shortage in AC Transit. Massive shortage of drivers, which I doubt is going to get suddenly better in a year. So to hold hope that AC Transit would add bus routes, I think if we could do the passes and we do the bus, that we're going to just have to be as supportive as we can. But I think the legacy is we don't provide middle school transportation. If maybe you should put up the route, but because of the contraction of the zones, a lot of the central zone to Longfellow is actually around Longfellow. It doesn't go a whole lot further south. it goes up into a swath of the hills, right? So the question is, how is the swath of the hills going to potentially get down to Longfellow? Which a lot of those folks right now are probably making their way to Willard or to King. So I just, transportation, I'm not ignoring it in any sense, but I think, again, similarly, I don't think we hold up if we don't have AC Transit coming in with more bus routes.
And thank you, Director Sanai, for that. And that's one something that they completely emphasize with me of how much they don't have bus drivers. They are like running short. They're like to the point that they don't know what to do. I mean, like, and that's why they couldn't commit anything. They said, like anything that they can do needs to be within their existing routes, because they are suffering, just like that the district is suffering too. Like sometimes it's difficult to get bus drivers.
Thank you for those questions, Julian, for your responses, Francisco. The challenging thing about presiding or being the president is that you have to wait until the very end to ask your questions, and 9 times out of 10, everyone has already asked. But tonight, Director Alper started off presiding, so that means that I get to jump and ask my questions before him. I appreciate the comments that were made around transportation, especially because we have not provided transportation to our middle schools before, but I'm very grateful, Francisco, that you all did the work to ensure that we have at least one bus that goes to Longfellow, as well as, you're committed to continue to work with HC Transit to see what all we can do to provide transportation for our students. So I wanted to appreciate and highlight that. If you don't mind, I kind of want to switch a little bit to the sibling policy, specifically around the legacy policy. And I'm happy to know that, 5th grade students who are 5th graders during the 2022-2023 academic year will have the opportunity to benefit from the legacy policy. But can you talk a little bit about the rationale to only offer it for 1 year and not continue with the legacy policy in the future?
So it was a very hard decision. I can tell you, like policy subcommittee meeting as to whether to do it or not do it, and because the rationale is like, because it's the first year of the implementation, and we wanted to be a little bit lenient with some of the, with the families that had siblings, and the sibling needed to be somebody that have just been promoted, like this year that will be promoted, and not that. And we didn't want to do more than that. I mean, like even when I said a lot of consideration was given, it's like it was to get it to 1 year, just 1 year, and not more. It's like I think that if we granted for the additional years, it undermines the whole process as to why we're doing the attendance zones and the whole goal of integration. If we're going to start granting an additional year, and then where do you stop? And so we said like 1 year is ample notice to the families so that they understand, and we wanted to keep focus on the goal of having of not granting a lot of one-time exceptions, because then we don't have a plan, and so that's the reason.
Thank you for that. And then on the flip side, can you also talk about what maybe was discussed at the policy committee? And I know this was direction from the board, but what are the benefits of just doing the legacy policy in the first place, knowing that students may not be there with their siblings at all?
Director Alper, do you want to add anything?
I'm sorry, President Brown, can you just repeat that last question?
Yes, if you weren't listening, just say that. No,
I was listening.
What I was saying is, the legacy policy will allow 5th grade students to go there and be there with their siblings who transition, who are current 8th graders or standing 8th graders, but will be in 9th grade next year. If they will not be there with their siblings next year, I would like to understand the rationale for having the legacy policy.
Well, it's a little bit, we had as Mr. Martinez mentioned, we sort of a robust discussion and debate about this in the policy committee. The side of the debate that was most in favor of a legacy policy is not here with us tonight. So it's a little bit, I don't want to like put words in anybody's mouth, but I think the idea was that in general, there's some concern that, you know, you as a family get attached to a school, to a middle school, to a community, to the, you know, get to know the teachers, you're part of the PTA. And even if your older kid is now at Berkeley High, you have an incoming fifth grader, you're still a part of that community, and you want to, and so it's important to stay in that community, even though both your kids aren't still at the school. That I think is a real thing that we acknowledged in the policy committee meeting. And then on the other side of it is that as Francisco said, every exception we make dilutes the whole point of the policy, which is to end these years of disparity and systemic racism that our current system perpetuates. So we kind of compromised on doing it for 1 year on the, and superintendent, please jump in after I'm done. But the idea of 1 year was that it was to ensure that there was absolutely sufficient notice to all families who might have planned to have their stay in the same middle school community. I'm struggling because I don't particularly agree with this. I would be in favor of no legacy policy at all. But I think the idea was for 1 year and only 1 year. And Mr. Martinez, I think the language makes it very clear that it's only 1 year. That way, nobody can say they didn't have at least a year's worth of notice that this was going to happen. And then after that, the policy will be fully and completely implemented without exceptions. But I don't know, Superintendent, did I do a fair job of?
You did an excellent job. I was just going to say it's just more of an offering of grace. It was just, you know, folks have gone through middle school and planned and expected to go to, gone through schools and they plan to go to, you know, the next school and may or may not have had this information. So we wanted to offer them the grace for this transition year for the same reasons that Ms. Director Sinai said, that folks might not have had the information, and this change is hard. So we wanted to just honor the feedback from the director and offer it 1 year.
Thank you very much. I have another question that's on a different topic, but I'll allow Director Alper to start his questions, and then we'll go back around for our second round of questioning. I'm sorry, the second round of questions, beginning with Director Vasudev, and then I'll come back with my question. Director Alper.
Okay, I think I'll be shorter than I had previously thought because you all had such good questions and comments. So a couple of real quick things. Mr. Martinez, I think that the suggestion in public comment that we have a really clear map is a really good one. The maps are just not that, you can't tell where you live on them if you're at all close. So I hope and assume that'll be part of the ultimate, once you know exactly what the maps are, which it sounds like you do, really clear ones where you can look up your address, I assume will be part of the communication.
Yes, you know, this is the, you know, like this is the part that we're begun to work on is creating a street directory, and the street directory will tell you exactly where you live and what zone you live in, just like we do for the elementary school. It will be the same process. Yes.
Great. And then just so yeah, I really appreciated your comments, your presentation, Director Sinai's comments about change being hard, and that especially and I really like what you said, Director Sinai, about how it's these families now who are kind of bearing the brunt of the change, and what we're doing, you know, is a real big change. It's a bold change, and it's a principled change, but it means that some families' settled expectations are going to be upset. The TWI program is a KA program. That doesn't mean when and it's billed that way and it's discussed that way, and there's a research-based reason for it. One that we haven't talked about actually is that, you know, it's a reciprocal program. So the kids, when they're little, it's the native English speakers who are benefiting from the native Spanish speakers model, and then as you get older and English instruction is added, it's the native Spanish speakers who benefit from the native English speakers. And so if the native English speakers leave the program at the later end of the of what's designed to be a K-8 program, then it's the native Spanish speakers who lose the full benefits of the program. So it's always meant to be a K-8 program, but it is true that when they enrolled in kindergarten, they didn't know that they were going to be zoned into the Longfellow school. But that's true of people who live in the King Zone or live in the Willard Zone and now find themselves in a different zone. We changed the plan. You know, we did it over a course of 3 or 4 years with countless town hall meetings and presentations where, as Mr. Martinez said, the idea that Sylvia Mendez would be a feeder to Longfellow was presented consistently, no matter what model we were talking about. So I feel completely comfortable with that being the way we do it. I do think that we should be really clear about it. And when you use the term open enrollment, I'm not sure that that's a term that like everybody understands what it means. So I just wanted to make sure I understood what you mean, Mr. Martinez. If a family is at Sylvia Mendez in TWI and they will be assigned to Longfellow regardless of where they live. If they want to go to a different school, King or Willard, they can apply to get on the wait list at one of those schools. That's what I think you mean by open enrollment, right? Just like anybody else, they can apply to a school that they're not assigned to and maybe get in off the wait list. Or if they want to leave TWI, just like now, if you're at Longfellow in TWI and you want to leave TWI, there's a process within Longfellow to move over to the English only part of the curriculum at Longfellow, and you can do that too. So you can opt out of TWI, but you'll opt out of it at Longfellow. Is that right? Is that so that's what you're proposing?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're very familiar with students attending schools outside of the attendance zone. We do that for the elementary school too. You know, like about 5 to 10% of our students at the elementary school attend a school outside of the attendance zone. So we're fully familiar with experience in dealing with those questions. Families.
Great. Okay, thanks so much.
Director Vasudev.
Yeah, so one is a point of clarity, because I keep hearing from my colleagues, well, we've never provided transportation before, but we have a new model. I mean, the whole point why you're providing transportation now is because there's a new model. So yes, there hasn't been a need before, but we have a new model. That's why there's a need. Number one. And number two, I do feel that the issues with construction, right? Like parents are logically going to have questions. We took this vote in June at a time where a lot of families were out of the district, right? Before you came, Superintendent Morthell. So I feel like there could be a subset of the population, what I'm hearing from the comments, right? Especially from, it seems like a lot of Mendez families that might feel blindsided or might feel like they don't have enough information. So the discussion that we're having now about like, how do you get on the wait list for another school? How are we mitigating the impacts from the construction? All of these things, I think, we should explain to the public as people are coming in to understand the model, to see how that's going to impact their child. All of this needs to be explained to families in December, right? Like the outreach and engagement continues. Just because we don't have the consultant and we're not, doing the same sessions that you and I were attending, Mr. Martinez, with our families, just because that's not happening doesn't mean that our families aren't going to have questions. So I think FAQs, or what kind of information, Superintendent, do you think, just based on the feedback that, we're hearing tonight, that we're seeing in the emails that are coming to us, right? What kind of information can we put together for families in December, just to kind of help them navigate some of the logical questions that they have? And I agree, Mr. Martinez, like a lot of these, my son, for example, attends a school outside of his zone, right? But the process for how to do that, I think it's really important for families to know, like, we're still doing the same thing that we still do now. And I think, you explain it much more eloquently, Mr. Francisco, but maybe like an FAQ sheet with some of the questions that we're getting now in the fall would help our families just kind of understand how to navigate these changes, because change is hard. And I want to make sure that we're upfront with how we're addressing some of the concerns that we're hearing. Thank you.
Not because we're adopting the policy and the ARs, that doesn't mean like the work for us doesn't end. It's just kind of beginning for my office. And so I can tell you that, for instance, the FAQ is a good idea. But also, like I said, like I fully expect that I'm going to be having meetings with parents to explain this, like what we're doing, just like we do for elementary school kids. It's like I will be doing that. And one of the things that because we got some questions from Sylvia Mendez parents, and those are the ones that are here, is like, as soon as we have something that if there are no changes, I want to have a meeting with Sylvia Mendez, not only the Sylvia Mendez parents, but Sylvia Mendez staff. Because I want to make sure that the information that the parents are getting is the same information that the staff is getting, because sometimes we speak but then sometimes parents don't hear the same thing, even though like they're listening to the same thing. So I offer myself, like, as soon as we have like an opportunity, like, which I said, I think is pretty soon, in the next couple of weeks or something, if there is a meeting and I'm invited, I will go and explain to them the same process that I explained to you as a board member, like what we're doing. I don't, like I want them to know it's like what we're doing.
Student Director Siegel.
Thank you. I just, following from Director Alper's comments, I wanted to clarify that it came up in public comment how, if the TWI program wasn't exactly working for a particular student, that it might benefit them to switch over to better fit their learning and confront, maybe their inability to work within the program in middle school. I just wanted to clarify and make sure that it said that the enrollment coming out of Sylvia Mendez isn't directly into the TWI program at Longfellow, right? It's into just Longfellow as a school. So the families had the option to switch out, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Director Sinai.
You can go. Do you want to do your question?
It was burning on the inside because I needed to say it, but I know that this is, excuse me, I know that this is not considered to be one of our administrative regulations, but I think I've said this a couple of times during this presentation. Director Vasudev also brought it up tonight, and I wanted to take a little time to talk about it, especially hearing some of the comments and the tone in which they were presented tonight, as well as some of the emails. I'm really concerned about the culture of our schools and the shifts to the culture of our schools, especially knowing that for whatever reasons they hold, some people are not happy about the shift and the middle school reassignment. And so I want to know, and I know you've thought about this, Francisco, but what we are thinking about, Superintendent for Marcel, I hope you can chime in as well, but what are our plans and what are we thinking about in terms of ensuring that our schools are going to continue to be safe spaces and safe havens for specific groups and populations of students. Speaking on behalf of Longfellow, and I'm a Longfellow Tiger, but Longfellow was an incredibly safe space, or has the history of being an incredibly safe space for many Black and Brown students. And knowing that there are some beliefs or some attitudes around making that shift to Longfellow, I'm nervous about the impacts on students as well as the impact on faculty and staff. And so I'm wondering, I know you all share these concerns as well, and I'm wondering what we've thought about outside of the expansion of Puente and Umoja, what else we've thought about to address that.
Superintendent, do you want to go first?
I'll just quickly say, Director Brown, some of this I'm just now understanding as I also receive emails and hear comments. I otherwise would have walked in and made the assumption that Berkeley is committed to diversity and integration, as I was told when I came, and looking at the things that I read and the things that I hear, and that a change in zones wouldn't necessarily cause upset for some of the reasons that I've heard, not necessarily some of the reasons that were communicated on this call, but some of the things that have been shared with me. And so I do appreciate your calling out that for some babies, this coming together might not feel as safe. So I think in addition to really making sure we're giving our families the information that they need, we're also going to be thinking about school tours, for example, because I think sometimes there's a lot of hype and families have assumptions about what schools are like. I've been to Longfellow, I've been to Willard, I've been to King, all amazing communities, all amazing spaces, all with loving staff, all with dedicated educators and awesome students and families. And so making sure that our families who are new, who might not know, get an opportunity to come and visit and tour is definitely on the list. Was also thinking about some community events. So not only just as you're thinking about or wanting to visit the school, but once we get school started, or maybe even the summer leading up to that first school year, thinking about ways that we can leverage our CBOs and our partners to host different things, to bring those families and communities together. A lot of meet and greets and conversations with our school principal. And I'm saying this without having talked to her, because again, this is all kind of like, whoa, this is what it's really like in Berkeley. And then also just thinking about just talking and creating spaces, for the students themselves to get to know each other. Oftentimes, once the babies are in school and feel good, new babies, continuing babies, and the family see that, their affective filters go down and they recognize that Longfellow, just like King and just like Willard, is another amazing space within BUSD. And I am open to other ideas as well. But again, I'm still kind of like, wow, okay, got it. We need to definitely do some coming together of hearts and minds as we make this transition. It's not just about maps and policies.
No, absolutely. I really appreciate your thoughtful response, because I know you've taken some time to think about what we should do and what we could do moving forward. I think the only thing that I would, as you're receiving suggestions, the only thing that I would add is encouraging us to change the narrative and to be thoughtful about the language that we use, especially when we are talking about our schools, knowing that there are families, faculty, staff, as well as alumni who are connected to these schools, who have benefited from the incredible educational experiences that these schools provide. And so I'm interested in working with you to ensure that we change the narrative and that we shift our language. Director Sinai.
Thank you. I appreciate those words. And I have to, it's just, it means a lot because, my daughter went to Longfellow and her best friends to this day, and she's 26 years old, are her Longfellow buddies. And my son went to King and his buddies are, so middle school does have a big impact, on when you've got a good, successful experience. I wanted, Superintendent Ford Morthell, I appreciate when you started talking about the school tours, because one of the things I wanted to ask is we always do middle school open house and, try to encourage the kids from the elementary school to go check out the middle school. And some of the elementary schools do tours with the middle schools. And so with the changing of the zone and the patterns, working with the principals of the schools to figure out how to make sure we can still do that kind of exposure to the kids. Because now, I think maybe it'll be mostly central zone schools, that kind of get split. But figuring out within schedules to make sure that we can get fifth graders over to meet and to tour the middle schools, because I think that also helps a lot. And when we did the research around the feeder program versus the traditional model, what the research really demonstrated is that what makes a successful transition to middle school is having a warm, welcoming environment that you're embracing the students transitioning in and helping to create the pathways for their success. So, I think in elementary school, I can't remember what it used to be called. It was like, was it Early Bird or something? There was like, there was a way where we could bring kindergartners in to kind of get acclimated. It's like, if there could be ways that we work with the middle school teachers and staff there to figure out how to do the warm welcome and not just like jump into, classroom. And they may already do this. So if they do, fantastic. But the research really bore out that it's that warm, welcoming, encouraging, the connections is what makes for a successful transition. And we don't really, we talk about it at elementary school, but we don't really talk about it so much at middle school. The U9 is kind of the intention around the transition to the high school. So maybe we can look at a transition program for the middle school.
I just wanted to add that in January, we have what we call information nights, not only at elementary schools, but also at the middle schools. And that might be, like this is before students are enrolled. So I encourage you, all of you, if you can, because this time they're going to be in person, if you can come, that school, for instance, we were at Berkeley High last Friday. And what I can tell you is that many times the administrators are extremely appreciative when there's an extra body there where they can go in and guard and basically look at a door, making sure that the students are safe, because that's something that they don't have to do. And so supporting them even in those minor things, it helps a long way. Just coming to the schools, and the school sites really appreciate it when we do that.
Student Director Siegel.
Thanks. I just want to really appreciate what you said, President Brown, about the ideas and beliefs surrounding each of the middle schools. And I just want to make sure to communicate that these things are felt within the high school. I didn't attend BUSD middle schools at all, but I certainly do know the implications of students that attended each ones and how they feel about each other. One thing that I don't think is talked about enough between adults, but is definitely talked about between students, is how segregated Berkeley High is socially, especially. And I feel like the current structure of the middle schools is a direct contributor to this. And as Director Sinai was saying, the lifelong friendships that form, and so like the importance of the middle school relationships that we build, these really are felt within the high school, and they contribute to a culture that is very segregated, and there is animosity and there is tension between these groups at times just because of the middle schools that they came from. And so I'm really pleased to, as we spoke about earlier, just like the clear data of how the integration of these schools and the ensurement that we are truly representing our community at each of these schools is, and how this hopefully will unintentionally affect the high school and fix one of the biggest problems that I see with it, which is how disconnected our students are with each other. And this value that we have of being together, students talk about it all the time, that Berkeley holds itself to certain values, and we say that we identify with certain things, when in practice we really don't do that. And so I'm really, really thankful for what you said, President Brown. I just want to make sure that we're all aware of this as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you as well, Student Director Siegel. You took my comments and my sentiments to another level and really helped us to see how it doesn't just impact our students when they are in middle school, but how it follows them to the high school level as well. So thank you for what you offered. I don't see any other hands or any other questions from the Board of Education. And so thank you, Mr. Martinez, for your presentation, for your hard work on this, as well. Thank you to you, Superintendent Formorthel, for your work on this and for your thoughtful responses to this evening's questions. We are at the end of our meeting. As you all remember, item 14.3 was taken off of this evening's agenda. Please keep in mind that there are two items that are listed as information items. Please take a look at those when you have the opportunity to. We will now move to the second opportunity for public comment. If you would like to speak to the Board of Education at this time, please do so by raising your hand. Okay, we will begin our public comment period right now, and we will start with Leo Som, followed by Au Pair Care, with Aileen being our last public commenter of the evening.
Hello.
Hi, how are you? Welcome.
Hi, I'm sorry. I think my name is up as Opeke, and actually I am Rachel Wells. That's my work Zoom. I apologize for that.
Oh, it's
I don't
totally
think I
fine.
could.
Welcome, Rachel.
Hi. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak. I really appreciated listening to everybody's discussions here tonight and hearing the public comment and hearing all the work that's gone into the middle school zoning changes. I think I'm a parent of a 5th grader at Cragmont and a 3rd grader at Cragmont, and we're definitely directly impacted. But I just wanted to kind of comment a little bit on, some of the comments that came in earlier about construction. I think a lot of that is new information for some of the new parents that would be zoned for Longfellow. And I think we would love to know more information about the environmental impact for the students. So if there is going to be, I heard that there was going to be 6th grade, and then it will be 7th grade, and then it will be 8th grade. To me, that sounds like the 6th grader coming in is going to have 3 years of construction. What does that impact look like? Will the playground still be in use? Will there be temporary classrooms? Is the school equipped to deal with 3 years of construction? Because $30 million construction project doesn't sound insignificant. And I think parents have valid questions about that. And I think we'd love to know more about what that construction project looks like and how it will impact the community, as we haven't known much about it until this point. It was disappointing to hear that it was dismissed as an insignificant issue earlier. And I think it's actually, something that we'd like to know more about. And I think that speaks to the next point, which is, I think there's an information gap for some of the parents coming in who will now be zoned for Longfellow, whereby we would love to know more information about the school. We'd love to have these information sessions. We would love to understand more about how it's all going to work and the transition. And so I think there is an opportunity there to educate us about what it's going to look like. Maybe the transportation is an issue, maybe it isn't, but I think definitely having more information is better when we go through these transitions, and not assuming that we all know already what the plan is and what it's going to look like, which I think has been really challenging so far, that we haven't had that information and we're still learning things on the fly. So thank you so much for all you're doing. I think more information is better, and I hope you'll have a lovely evening.
Thank you as well, Rachel. Have a good evening. Next, we will move to Leo.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
we can hear you just fine.
Oh, gosh. Thank you so much. I'm really struggling with the technology here, but thank you to the district for doing, I should say that I'm the parent of a middle schooler at Longfellow who's gone through the 2A immersion program and found it to be fantastic. I really appreciate the diligent work that the district has done in coming up with this plan. I will say that I wish that the school board had been able to take that recommendation a couple of years ago, but better late than never. And I think that the conversation today has been really illuminating and doesn't leave a lot more to be said, but I think let's stay inspired here. And I think of Sylvia Mendez, who I got to see speak when she came to the school named after her, and the effort that she went through to desegregate California schools. I think of Kamala Harris and what a wonderful person she has become, I think probably in part because of the struggles that she went through to help desegregate Berkeley schools. And I think also, of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. talking about how, we can't just wait to desegregate. We have to do that now. And that applies to us today as it applied when he said it, from a Birmingham jail. So it's fantastic that the suggestions come out to make the two-way immersion a full K through 8 program so that the folks who really want to commit to it for the full time have that opportunity, and the folks who are only halfway committed to it can let people who would take better advantage of it take advantage of that. So thank you so much, and I hope you continue to work out the details that are definitely difficult, but the goal is important. Let's keep our eyes on the prize.
Thank you, Leo, and thank you for being here this evening. Our final comment for this evening will be from Eileen. Please go ahead and begin whenever you're ready.
Sorry, I was talking and no one was listening.
No, it's okay. Go right ahead. We're listening now.
So I just want to make sure that I first start with the fact that I do support the TWI program, and I feel very fortunate that we got to try. I want to hone in on some communication points that I want, from my perspective, I think we're very, very unclear. You know, when we started this program and we started to look at TWI, it was 7 years ago. We were sort of the third incoming class. And we were told that this was sort of a program that may not last through middle school, that wasn't solidified yet. And I had read the research. We were hopeful that it would go through middle school and high school, but we did not understand that that was actually a commitment. We were not assured it was going to continue past Sylvia Mendez. And I've checked with several of my the parents that have been through Sylvia Mendez with, and they all agree that that was the situation when we made our decision, that it was tentatively through 6th. And when I've read all of the materials about Sylvia Mendez being a feeder school to Longfellow, I wanted that to be true for those who opted in for TWI. It was never apparent that if you didn't opt into TWI, that you would be forced to go to Longfellow. We would have spoken up sooner, and it just was not clear on both those points. And I think it's negatively impacting a few of us now. So I would urge you to please, please be more clear about this.
Thank you so much for your comment. This ends the public comment section, or the second opportunity for public comment. We'll now move to the second opportunity for board member comments. Board members, are there any comments that you all have? All right, hearing none, we will now move to adjournment. Thank you all so much for an excellent meeting, and we will see you again on the 30th. Good evening.